and the law in giving that directive for that task team to be disestablished. So we're getting the other side now. You've heard the allegations being made, and now you're hearing from the minister at the ad hoc committee in Parliament. So what we will do is go over the day one of his testimony with Professor Nirmala Devi Gopal, who is an academic leader in the discipline of criminology and forensic studies at University of KwaZulu-Natal. We'll have that conversation with Prof at 7:10. South Africa, we have a problem. South Africans wagered a staggering 1.5 trillion rand over the past financial year. But before you think the country has grown extraordinarily rich overnight, that figure, that 1.5 trillion, reflects turnover, not profit. The real revenue that gambling operators actually kept, the so-called house edge, amounted to 75 billion rand, with the rest paid out in winnings. And it's online betting that's driving this boom, accounting for about 60% of the industry's takings as more South Africans gamble on their phones. But the National Gambling Board warns that the trend has a dark side to it, from social grant recipients betting their stipends to offshore platforms siphoning off money from the economy. Now, with a new remote gambling bill on the table, calls are growing for tighter regulation of an industry that some say is spinning out of control. So at about 7:10 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Thulasizwe, who is Executive Director of the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. There are a few Simelanes on this show today. I can assure you, it's not, it's absolutely not nepotism. So we'll be speaking to Thulasizwe at about 7:10 this morning about this really serious phenomenon. 75 billion rand in revenue, 1.5 trillion rand in turnover from gambling activities in the past year. So yeah, we'll talk about that at about 7:10. Then lastly, let me flag this story for you. It's a bit complicated, and I'm hoping that our guest at about 7:20, Emerald Van Zyl, investigative financial consultant, will break it down for us. It all has to do with the finding of the Supreme Court of Appeal, which has ruled that Standard Bank unlawfully bypassed the National Credit Act by using settlement agreements to enforce debts against a family trust, which led to the sale of 14 immovable properties without proper legal procedure. We'll unpack it all with my guest, Emerald Van Zyl, as I say, that conversation coming up at about 7:20, so in the second hour of the show. So that's just some of what we will cover over the next 3 hours. A whole lot more still to come. All your regulars as well, locked and loaded once again this morning with N. Musa, as always, at the news desk. Rob Byrne on your traffic. Zaikan watching all things sport. Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief. Dowling Lechela with insights into the economy, business and market updates throughout the 3 hours of the show. And of course, Sipho Mantula with big news to report, especially around Madagascar. So he'll be coming through with the Africa update at about 7:20 this morning. In it all, let's have a conversation, let's engage and sharpen each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, please send them to 0614 104 107. We've started it up, revved it a few times. It's idled and warmed up nicely. Let's put it in gear and get it going on this Friday morning.
Let's rewind 6 years, when Twitter was still Twitter, not a letter of the alphabet. TikTok was simply the sound your clock made. And Zoom just meant enlarging a picture. So it makes you wonder, what will the next 6 years bring? Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, covering everything from pistons to gears. So although a lot can change in 6 years, our warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
So you thought you were building a business in this economy, but day by day, somehow it grew. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore, it's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
Mzansi, Powerball has reached a staggering 150 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Friday. Only 3 times in history has Powerball reached such jaw-breaking levels. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for the guaranteed 150 million rand jackpot today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old, but play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
At 14 minutes after 6, let's get started with Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. Let's start in Mahikeng. Lots of activity at the business premises of Brown Mokgotsi.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, indeed. Police have raided the Mahikeng business premises of controversial Northwest businessman Brown Mokgotsi as part of an ongoing investigation linked to claims of corruption and interference in police operations. Mokgotsi is accused of accessing confidential police information, attempting to disband the political task team, and using criminal funds to support ANC activities. He has been implicated in testimony before both the Madlanga Commission and Parliament, while ANC has distanced itself from Mokgotsi, claiming he is no longer a member. He insists his membership is valid and has dismissed the allegations as politically motivated and based on untested evidence.
Pay back the money, says the presidency. What money, says former President Jacob Zuma?
Quite the battle indeed. Former President Jacob Zuma is fighting a bid by the presidency and state attorney to recover over 28 million rand in state funds used for his legal fees following a 2024 Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that the payments were unlawful. Zuma's lawyer, Advocate Tabani Masuku, argued in the Gauteng High Court that Zuma should not be held personally liable as he received the funds based on faulty legal advice and was not involved in any corrupt dealings. He called Zuma a victim of the state's unconstitutional actions and questioned why responsible state officials were not being pursued instead. The state insists that Zuma benefited from luxurious litigation and must repay the money, while the DA wants interest added and suggests that attaching Zuma's pension if he cannot pay this fee. Judge Anthony Miller reserved judgment, noting that the legal and moral complexities of this matter, including Zuma's age and financial responsibilities. So this is one that will be interesting to see what the end result will be.
Yeah. Let's talk about, amidst the tragedy that occurred in Limpopo, the death of the 43 people, there are certain observations that are being made. Tell me what the minister in the presidency is saying about the quantities of unregistered antiretroviral drugs that were found at the scene of the wreckage.
Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Chaveni, raised alarm after a large quantity of unregistered ARV drugs were found in the wreckage of a deadly bus crash in Limpopo that killed 43 people. The bus was en route from Gqeberha to Zimbabwe and Malawi. Cabinet suspects that it is pharmaceutical smuggling rather, and a full investigation is currently underway. Chaveni warned that stolen ARVs undermines the fight against HIV, especially in a country with the world's largest epidemic. She also urged foreign nationals to respect South African laws, amid this situation. Despite the tragedy, she praised Limpopo's emergency response and announced the 2025 rollout of Lenacapavir, a biannual HIV prevention injection in high-risk areas. She also welcomed the USA's approval of over $100 million PEPFAR bridge plan to support uninterrupted HIV services within South Africa.
All of that coming from the post-cabinet briefing, of course. Lastly, Melissa, a story we touched upon quite extensively yesterday, the University of the Free State. Tell me what the agreement is between the university and the SRC regarding provisional registration.
So the University of the Free State and its student representative councils have agreed to phase out provisional registration over 2 years, which is 2026 and 2027, after protests erupted across campuses. Provisional registration currently allows students with outstanding fees to register. Under the new plan, students may register with debt and up to 70,000 Rand in 2026 and 60,000 Rand in 2027, after which the system will end. While the university says this will support a more sustainable financial aid model, many students feel betrayed, warning the policy will hurt future students. Protests led to campus closures, violence, and an interim court order banning unlawful activities within the campuses. The Kwaka campus remains closed due to damage, and stranded students say that the university has given them no support during the evacuations. Meanwhile, the Minister of Higher Education is monitoring the situation, but has been criticized for siding with the injured security personnel while ignoring the injured students and those who are disadvantaged during this time. And academic activities remain suspended until further notice. So we will have to watch over the weekend and see what changes happen.
All right, Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
On the weather front, just one warning, impact-based warning from the Weather Service. It's a yellow level 2 warning, and it says severe thunderstorms with heavy downpours resulting in localized flooding of low-lying areas, bridges, large amounts of small hail, damaging winds, and excessive lightning that is to be expected over the central parts of the northwest. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria, fine becoming partly cloudy with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 28. Johannesburg, fine becoming partly cloudy, 12 to 26. Vereeniging, fine becoming partly cloudy, 12 to 28. Mbombela, cloudy with light rain and drizzle until the afternoon, 13 to 16. Polokwane will be cloudy with light rain in the early morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 15 to 19. Mahikeng will be fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 16 to 28. Bloemfontein will be fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 11 to 32. Kimberley, fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 9 to 33. Uppington, same conditions with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 34. Cape Town will be fine, becoming partly cloudy from the evening, 13 to 28. George will be fine, becoming partly cloudy from the evening, 10 to 28. Gqeberha, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 9 to 22. East London, partly cloudy, 11 to 23. Durban, cloudy with isolated morning showers and rain, becoming partly cloudy in the evening with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 21. Richards Bay, cloudy with isolated morning showers and rain, 15 to 22. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will be cloudy with isolated showers and rain, becoming partly cloudy from the afternoon, 9 to 23.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Let's check in with the conflict in Ukraine. It's been a while since we touched on that story here on the show. So the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet the U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington today, seeking a major uptick in U.S. military aid, including long-range Tomahawk missiles and advanced air defenses, as Ukraine intensifies deep strikes on Russian energy infrastructure and endures relentless attacks on its own power grid and railway systems. The meeting comes at a critical juncture. Trump's recent rhetorical shift in favor of Kyiv, combined with the strain on both sides' military and economic capabilities as the war drags on. Let's speak to Roland Henwood, political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning and thank you for your time. Locate for me, Roland. It's been a while since we touched on the story, as I said. Locate for me where this visit to Washington fits in the trajectory of the war and how the war has been going and why Zelensky is making this trip to Washington at this point.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. the war is, in terms of the front lines, basically at a stalemate. So what we're seeing is Russia ramping up the pressure on Ukraine with attacking the energy infrastructure and specifically targeting also railways and transport, because that is the basis of movement of not only people, but also the military needs and equipment that Ukraine sends to the front line. So it's a targeted approach that covers both military, but also pressuring the civilian component, making life very difficult for people in Ukraine. The visit to Washington seems to have two purposes: strengthening ties with between Ukraine and the Trump administration, securing long-term flow of arms and equipment needed, because there's constant breaks in the flow, and that puts Ukraine under tremendous pressure. And then thirdly, to see if some missiles, better equipment, more range can be acquired that will give Ukraine means to put more pressure on Russia, specifically on its economic and petroleum sector, because that would, of course, make the war effort more difficult for Putin. However, there are changes again. Mr. Putin called President Trump yesterday, and they apparently had a 2.5-hour long discussion and have agreed to meet each other soon, seemingly in the next 2 weeks. So there's also diplomatic play happening. The question being raised, is Putin serious this time? Does he want to negotiate, or is he again buying time like he did in Alaska? Because even while that call went on, the attacks against Ukraine were just pursued in the way that it happened before. So lots of questions being asked, lots of questions about the commitment of President Trump, the diplomatic play of Mr. Putin, because the indication seems to be that no one is taking it too seriously, as this is now the time for peace. Lots of questions, very little answers. Meanwhile, the process of the war, the grinding process of the war continues.
What do we make of Mr. Trump's disposition towards both players, Mr. Putin as well as Mr. Zelensky? You mentioned the summit in Alaska, but I'm imagining that there must be something that perhaps has shifted even in his own disposition, given just the length of time it has taken and the toing and froing that has not really yielded much despite all of his efforts.
Well, it's confusing in a way, because Mr. Trump has moved from basically blaming the Ukrainians for the war and Zelensky for the war to becoming very frustrated and openly displaying his frustration with Putin, saying he's not honest, he's not serious, he doesn't want to end the war. But at the same time, he continues to talk about Putin as his good friend and his best friend, and they have a good relationship. He even did that yesterday before the call with Putin. So it's the message from Washington is erratic. It's difficult to understand exactly where the emphasis is, what the direction is. On the other hand, Mr. Putin seems to be under pressure, definitely. But the moment the threat of the U.S. engaging more directly and more in support of Ukraine, he plays the diplomatic process. He calls Mr. Trump. They have a long discussion. And Mr. Trump told this to the press in the past, that they have this discussion and he thinks they're close to a deal, and then Mr. Putin goes back and keeps on attacking. He also referred to the fact that the First Lady told him that you talk to this guy, but look what he's doing. So we have a lot of mixed messages. Yeah. We have a lot of contradictions in the process.
All right.
And it's not clear exactly where that is going and what is changing at this stage.
All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Roland Henwood, political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you. We'll start with soccer action this weekend. Plenty to look forward to. And as always, it will be Kaizer Chiefs who are eyeing stability in their CAF Confed Cup tie after the exit of their coach Nazruddin Nabi. And they're looking to calm the waters. They've got interim coaches Cedric Hayes and Khalil Ben Yusuf. They'll steer the Amakosi in Saturday's CAF Confed Cup qualifier against AS Simba. And Stellenbosch FC, last year's surprise package, begin their CAF Confed Cup journey against 15 de Agosto de Akonibe from Equatorial Guinea. Stellies hope to build on their semi-final run and prove they belong amongst the continent's elite. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates will continue their Champions League charge. The Buccaneers travel to Lubumbashi, where they'll face Saint Eloi Lupopo on Sunday, aiming to convert strong domestic form into continental momentum. And rugby's greatest rivalry, that's the alternating quadrennial tour between South Africa and New Zealand, confirmed, marking a defining new chapter for the rivalry between sport's most successful and storied nations. In the tour's maiden year, South Africa will host New Zealand in August and September 2026. The All Blacks kick off the tour against the Stormers in Cape Town on Friday the 7th of August and take on the Sharks, the Bulls and the Lions to complement a 4-test series against the Springboks. And cricket action, Captain Elisa Healy struck a second consecutive century as Australia thrashed Bangladesh by 10 wickets to secure their place at the World Cup semi-finals. Healy scored 113 in an unbroken opening partnership of 202 with Phoebe Litchfield as the defending champions raced to their target inside 25 overs. And that's our target. To be back, more sport, top of the hour. I am Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mokgotsi at the time of writing a directive to disband the political killing stars team. Mchunu, who was placed on special leave following allegations of political interference in policing, is appearing before Parliament's ad hoc committee. Accused number one in the Senzo Mehiwa murder trial, Muzi Sibiya, is expected back on the stand this morning at the High Court in Pretoria. Sibiya is being cross-examined after he gave evidence in chief. And the Western Cape Minister of Mobility, Isaac Seleku, has published a notice of intent in the Provincial Gazette to extend taxi route closures between Somerset West, Umfuleni, Khayelitsha and Strand. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Heads up, very heavy delays coming through Pietermaritzburg. Looks like it may be a sort of overrun of overnight roadworks and lane restrictions down by Market Road. It's a really substantial backlog. If you're coming through Pietermaritzburg, you'll get to about New England Road, and then you'll just look ahead and just see trucks and vehicles stacked and backed all the way down to Market Road. It's got the feel of just a single lane open and a really big backlog. So if you know what you're doing and off-ramping further north, coming through Pietermaritzburg, back on at Market Road or back on at Ashburton, just to avoid that very solid queue on that N3 going south. Bit of pressure on Durban's N2 south as well, queuing up into Spaghetti Junction, just coming from Westwood Mall. That's very unusual. And no traffic lights at the Trade Centre Junction. So coming out of Phoenix Highway, the top end of the Phoenix Highway out towards the R102 and M41, that's a heavy queue. Joburg roadworks continue N3 north at Buccleuch. The delays are already pushing back towards Marlborough Drive. Another very busy run up through Deepcliff Interchange. N1 under pressure from Devlin, Eldorado Park, getting up through the interchange on your way down towards Uncle Charlie's. And Cape Town Baden-Powell Drive this morning is open at Khayelitsha. No major problems there with protesting. It was pretty calm overnight. But the problem on Baden-Powell is reasonably thick sand at Monwabisi. It's all over what they call Sandy Corner. I have put a picture up of that sand, and you can see how thick it is on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can have a look at that. Just proceed with care and expect some disruption. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you, Ndawleng, for the first update of the morning. Let's start with news to do with AI. That AI boom, that demand. Tell me what it's doing to TSMC and their quarterly profits.
So TSMC has posted its highest ever quarterly profit as relentless global demand for AI chips fueled a sharp jump in sales and capacity expansion. The world's largest contract chip maker said net income rose 39% from a year earlier to $15 billion in Q3, surpassing expectations. Revenue in the meantime climbed 30%, also ahead of forecasts. Now, TSMC's dominance in advanced AI and high-performance computing chips is paying off as orders from big clients such as NVIDIA and AMD continue to surge. The company's most advanced chips, critical for AI accelerators and smartphones, accounted for nearly 3/4 of its revenue. Now, looking ahead, TSMC expects demand for AI and data center chips to stay strong throughout the year, lifting its full-year revenue growth to the mid-30s range. New capacity in the US and Japan should also help it meet orders and ease supply pressure. While trade and tariff risks remain, the company says its global footprint and technology lead will keep it on track when it comes to growth.
And job losses at Nestle, and this has to do with global restructuring, does it?
That's right, Thulas. The company's new CEO, Philippe Navratil, unveiled plans to streamline the company, including job cuts of 16,000 over the next 2 years, a signal to investors that a faster, more aggressive reset is underway. The restructuring marks Navratil's first major move since taking charge last month, as he seeks to revive growth and repair confidence. Now, the layoffs represent about 6% of Nestle's workforce and are expected to save about 1 billion Swiss francs, double the earlier target. The analyst said the announcement showed that Navratil is going on the offensive, with investors rewarding his decisive tone. This announcement came alongside the group's earnings report, where profits slipped close to 2% in the first 9 months of 2025. Nestle's organic growth in the meantime rose 3.3%, driven by coffee brands such as Nespresso and other products in the snacks division like Kit Kat. Now, Navratil said the group must do more and move faster as it pushes toward 3 billion francs in savings by 2027.
So lastly, recap for us in Daoling, market activity of the past day and how we've started the day today.
Starting in the US, overnight stocks closed in the red as the government shutdown drags on and as investors keep a close eye on US-China developments. And with that, the Dow Jones taking the biggest hit, down 0.65%. The jitters spooking American investors seems to be boosting the gold price as we continue to see a flight for safety, and that, of course, filtering through to the local markets, with the JSE closing mostly in the green yesterday. The all share gained 0.1 or wait a minute. The all share gained 1%.
What did you say?
It gained 1.2%, not 0.2%. Okay. The rand in the meantime is still stable. We aren't seeing much action playing out there. It's at 17.36 to the greenback. Oil in the meantime taking a knock at $61 per barrel this morning from close to $63 yesterday. And then lastly, in Asia, stocks in the red amid renewed trade tensions between Washington and Beijing.
All right. Thank you for that. We'll touch base with you once again just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. Let's start with news coming out of Doha. Tell me about this truce between the DRC government and the M23. It's different from the agreement between DRC and Rwanda, is it?
Absolutely, Thulas. Refreshing morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, when we look at this, what I'll call the fragile peace agreement between the government of DRC and M23 that was signed in Doha. Remember, Thulas, it was signed in August on the 18th. So this has been a delayed one that they had to now fast track now to have what they call the new mechanism that will include the equal representation from the government of DRC and the M23, also with the input from the International Conference on the Great Lakes. Observers, African Union, USA, and Qatar. Now, the mechanism to us, it is known as the ceasefire oversight and verification mechanism, which will do what to us? Investigate violations, issue weekly bulletins, coordinate rapid response to prevent renewed hostilities. MONUSCO and the UNPCP mission, the DRC, will also assist on logistics. Despite that, we know that the DRC has been pushing and pulling to us that the UN mission in the DRC must phase out. But here we see now in this agreement, they are pulling MONUSCO to be assisting with logistics. Like I said, to us, they are in Doha, but when you go to the north and to the south of Kivu, there are still tensions going on.
Yeah. And then tell me about this, the arrival of the body of the late former Kenyan Prime Minister and long-time opposition leader, Raila Odinga. His body has arrived at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
It was chaotic yesterday. You cannot say chaotic also, but it was a public emotion that was flowing around the Kenyatta International Airport with the arrival of Amolo Raila Odinga's body from India. Now, what has happened to us is that you have your VIP gates, but there was a breach. The young people went in, the supporters of Baba went in as they are calling him Baba, because despite that he has tried to go into the State House, as I said, 5 times, and being a former Prime Minister, it appears that the government of Kenya had already prepared for this overwhelming welcome by the people of Kenya of the remains, the mortal remains of former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. They had 36 ambulances on site that can provide emergency services. On what I said, it was a testament of the scale of public response and emotions. No dates have been set up so far to us about when will be the memorial and as well as the state funeral. But Baba, the Hammer, Raila Amolo Odinga, has arrived in Kenya.
Right, and I can mention, Sipho, while you talk about that we are scheduled to speak to Lamek Ogode, who was advisor to the late former Prime Minister on issues of AI and tech. We are scheduled to have that conversation at about 7:10. Tell me about the meeting between the two foreign ministers, Russia and Morocco. There's a bit of a toe-naddering there happening.
That is very true, but to us, I've said Morocco tomorrow there's a protest, but I don't know how Moscow navigates engaging with Morocco on this issue of bilaterals, but also touching on what you said to us, the war in Gaza. Both Lavrov and Burita, both foreign affairs ministers had to engage on what we'll say is the issues of deepening their strategic partnerships, looking at the question of the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question, but also acknowledging the role of His Majesty King Mohammed V as the head of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Lavrov also went further to us to say that we do acknowledge the Washington process with Egypt, but also it is important that they also engage beyond Middle East. They also touch on the dispute of Western Sahara, which I think to us is very relevant. But like I said, the missing point also is the Gen Z 212, that even if Russia visits Rabat, they must also, when they're engaging with Rabat, they must also be cognizant of what is happening on the ground in the capital city of Morocco.
So since the coup in Madagascar started unfolding, we've been wondering what does it mean, what are its implications for SADC, with the chairpersonship having been in Madagascar under the now ousted President Andry Rajoelina. We've heard now from the SADC Troika. Tell me what they're saying.
That communique from the SADC Troika that came in yesterday, it is all about the issue of the fact-finding mission that should dispatch next week, a bit late again to us. And I want to differ with you whether military coups or military revolutions or the Gen Z uprising, because from the AU and SADC have not yet had them defining what has happened in the island. But also what I wanted to touch on what the chair of the Troika, Peter Mutharika, the head of the Troika, saying that they will have this fact-finding going on the 22nd, and on the 31st they will receive that report as the Troika and look at the Troika scenario to us. It's Eswatini, it's Malawi. Tanzania is already preoccupied with elections to us. So it will also say that the frontline states of SADC, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa must also give support to Malawi and Eswatini to deal with this issue. And finally, to us, we are saying Rajoelina enters into the list of many leaders who have been removed in power. 2024, you'll never forget this, the Syrian leader Bashar, who was also removed in power. Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh, removed in power, 2024. Brother leader Muammar Gaddafi removed in power 2011 with the Arab Spring that was agitated by the U.S., Makravalo Manana Tulas 2002 and 2009, overthrown by the military coup, probably now Tulas, led by the same Kapsat that removed Rajolina. Finally, the diaspora, Jean Bertrand Aristide, removed twice Tulas in military coups in 1991 and also in 2011 he had to return back home. I think that was very important, Tulas, just to say Rajolina enters that wall of fame and shame of African leaders and world leaders.
Yeah. Lastly, Sipho, let's go to your historical archives. 2 birthdays that you want to, in fact, 2 moments involving 2 iconic South Africans that you want to mark.
Tulas, I think this is very historical also and monumental in the sense that both of them are no longer with us. Jonas Mosagwangwa was born on the 19th of October, 1937. He will have been 88 years. Born in Orlando East in Soweto. A man who went with Braju, Bomnemire Makeba, for Meleta, John Brakefas. Those are the people that we have to always remember. But Jonas also Amanda Ensemble, composer of Cry Freedom, one of the songs that was played in the Cry Freedom, who will have been 88 years. We lost him in 2021, Tulas, during the COVID situation in this country. And on Sunday also, the former Justice Geneva, Yvonne Mokgoro, was born in Khalishewi. For our listeners in Kimberley, in Nomortue, Tulas, they should know that this woman will have been 75 on Sunday. He was born in 1950. We lost Mokgoro just on the 9th of May 2024. Mokgoro, Tulas, as me and you were legal minds, I want to remind you, he was serving as the judge of the Constitutional Court, a justice of Constitutional Court between 1994 and October 2009. He has chaired the Law Reform Commission. He studied in Northwest Mafikeng. He was also one person who judged important judgments, and you remember State versus Makwanyane on the right to life, Tulas. But an important case that I think is important, Labi and Odam versus the MEC of Education, Jafta versus Kuman and Khoza, Minister of Social Development, Helden Hayes and National Director.
Now you're
of
just
Public
showing off.
Prosecution. I'm not showing off. I'm just trying to show you this role of Geneva, the judgment he obtained.
Yeah.
And finally, Tulas, 2011, he also chaired, 2021 actually, he chaired the Human Rights Council, the racial justice body. That was the mechanism to look at the systematic racism in law enforcement and criminal justice. I think I've tried my level best, Tulas, to give you one of the sages of the constitutional law, administrative law, Geneva, Yvonne Mokgoro, from Nomortue, Khalishewe, Kimberley. Asante sana, Tulas, it's also leading the conversation, SFM, observing the cyber security man.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with the Africa Update. Quite comprehensive, as well as that historical archive. So very, eloquently presented. And Sipho, they're showing off some of his skills there and just recalling some of the key and monumental judgments that were penned by Justice Yvonne Mokgoro.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 as Judge Fritz Squirn shows the contestants how to make boerewors from scratch. Then it's their turn to create their own version and present a winning feast. Who'll serve up a meaty masterpiece and who'll get caught up in the grind? That's the Tastemaster Junior, Tuesday evenings at 7:30. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
Are you a small business owner
Do you truly believe in your dream, but sometimes feel like the odds are stacked against you? Sanlam Corporate and Santam believe in you and in the power of SMMEs to grow South Africa's future. That's why they're hosting the 2025 Sanlam SMME Collective event on 21 October from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Sandton Convention Center. It's an invite-only event. To request an invite, visit sanlamonline.co.za/campaigns/SMME Collective and stand a chance to join the pitch parade, where entrepreneurs like you can present your pitch in person and get real-time expert feedback. Network, learn and be inspired. From funding and risk to AI and new markets, let's unlock growth and shape your future together. Stay tuned to SAFM for more.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a busy week for motorists coming in from the south using the N1. This is from Eldorado Park, from Lenasia, Protea Glen. It's a heavy backlog again today, third consecutive morning where you piled up on that high-volume N1 from the Deepcliff interchange through, in fact, the Potch Highway interchange from the N12 there, all the way up through Devland and through the Deepcliff interchange down to Uncle Charlie's. A lot of pressure on that N1 North. The N3 queuing up into Buccleuch. The roadworks there continue at a pace. The traffic's already backlogging through towards Marlborough Drive. Delays coming out of Mamelodi, Pretoria side, Solomon Mslangu through the R104 and then down on towards the N4. Quite a backlog of traffic to work through. Durban, no traffic lights. Phoenix Highway at Trade Centre. You can imagine the mess leaving Phoenix that side. It is heavy. A breakdown on the N2 South at Spaghetti Junction. That's the problem this morning coming through from Mageni Road. It's all backed up and a heavy backlog. This is just continuing to grow as you come through Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban. There's some very heavy pressure basically from sort of Ortman Road all the way down through to Market Road. It's either something's broken down or there's just a single lane section for some roadworks, but it is heavy. Heavy enough to consider off-ramping just at the top of Pietermaritzburg, running through the central Pietermaritzburg area. You can join at Market Road or you can push through and join at Ashburton. There are a couple of options for you to get past that one. Also in KZN, a truck crash just north of Schlischlui likely to have an impact. Cape Town, crash scene, R300 going north at Van Riebeek Road. That's already pushing a queue back towards the Stellenbosch Arterial. And Baden-Powell open at Khayelitsha. No protesting overnight. Road stays open this morning, although there is some thick sand at Monwabisi. What they refer to as Sandy Corner is sandy this morning, so just expect some disruption and proceed with caution getting through there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
9 minutes to 7 on this Friday. About 35 taxi drivers a day in Gauteng are being caught behind the wheel without a valid driver's license. That's nearly 500 in just 2 weeks. The province's new Gauteng Traffic Inspectorate, a 96-member unit launched in June, is cracking down, we are told, hard on unsafe and illegal taxi operations. Let's speak to Lesiba Mpia, who speaks on behalf of the MEC for Roads and Transport in Gauteng. Lesiba, good morning. Thank you for your time. Tell me about these operations. Are they targeted? Are they targeting specifically the minibus taxi industry, and why, if they are?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Tulas, and good morning to your listeners. These operations are actually scheduled to actually focus on lawlessness on our roads, in particular perpetuated by those that are providing public transportation in as far as the National Land Transport Act is concerned. So in accordance with the law, if you are going to operate in Gauteng in exchange for remuneration, you are then going to align yourself within the prescripts of the regulations in the Land Transport Act as well as in the National Road Transport Act. So this is not a targeted specifically for taxis, but it is scheduled law enforcement operations that are happening across the board. We are going for buses that are illegal, those that are, commonly known on our roads as moving coffins, including taxis that are not compliant. And yes, we are coming across many infringements, including fraudulent face value documents, as well as those that are producing, or unable to produce valid driver's license.
In fact, talk a bit more about that. Officials are talking about what they are calling a troubling pattern of non-compliance. How does it manifest? Give me some of the examples in the minibus taxi industry, including the examples that I cited in my introduction.
So you know that in terms of the National Land Transport Act, a driver behind the wheel who's going to operate a vehicle and transport commuters must have a valid professional driver's license. We come across a situation where those are not the order of the day, or we have drivers that do not have that particular prerequisite. Over and above that, you have drivers with invalid driver's licenses, as well as those that are unable to produce operating licenses that are valid. And of course, yes, we do also take ownership of the fact that part of the inefficiencies have been within the system, but we're put together. The MEC has actually given amnesty to those who have applied for operating licenses and are still waiting. So if you are stopped by a traffic officer, all you need to do is to produce an old or an expired operating license and your receipt, which is commonly referred to as an OLAS. But over and above that, Thulasizwe, we are also coming across face value documents that when we do verifications, you do see that this is indeed a fake face value document. And this ranges from your driver's license as well as operating license permits.
Lisiba, do I still have you?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes. So tell me about the sustainability of this, this whole project and this crackdown. How sustainable is it? Including, you mentioned just a few minutes ago what you're calling fraudulent face value documents. So upon being asked, the driver will present a document, but when you check it in your system, you find that it's fraudulent. That is very serious crime. So I'm wondering, in terms of follow through on elements that not only have to do with the traffic infringements, but also following through on the other underlying offenses that are there on a sustainable basis.
Look, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the RTMC, and the 96-strong team with competent men and women are a provision from the RTMC. So from a sustainability point of view, it certainly is sustainable for the next coming 3 years, because that's where our MOU takes us to. There's an interest of extending that MOU, but I suppose that the authority will take that decision at that particular point. And I think having it registered, the many successes, because believe it or not, Thulasizwe, this was called for by the industry itself with the recommendations that it made in the taxi commission that happened in 2019. And part of the mandate is also to combat taxi violence. Mm-hmm. And one of the igniters of taxi violence is also those that are operating illegally, or commonly known as pirate operators. So we are removing all those elements that are a source of conflict on our roads. And I think that from a sustainability point of view, we have done due diligence in terms of the financial sustainability. Sure. And I think, yes, there was resistance when we implemented this at first, but there's the overall compliance. We now know that this team is in Gauteng, it's operating.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. Lisiba Mbia is spokesperson for the MEC for Gauteng, for the MEC of Roads and Transport in Gauteng.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take a quick call from Brandon in Durban. Good morning to you, Brandon.
Morning, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Doing great, thank you. Yeah, just a quick one. I know earlier this morning you were speaking about having a guest on that's going to talk about the online gambling phenomena that hits South Africa.
Yes.
I've always been just struggling with something. Mm-hmm. I know that when researching and reading up on this, I know that the online gambling platforms, the only legal aspects of it is the sports betting and the horse racing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is deemed to be illegal.
Yeah.
So how is it that all of these things are allowed? Big companies and corporations are able to openly advertise this and then take revenue of South Africans illegally, and then also state it in their financial statements and get all of these things signed off by audit. I'm just struggling to reconcile all of these things.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So you're saying only 2 types of online gambling are supposed to be allowed. The rest are supposed to be illegal. But I suppose it then comes down to enforcement, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose so. But then the aspect of how are the financials getting signed off is another question, because you're going to have to do revenue testing and all of these things. And majority of them wouldn't come from your sports betting and your online and your horse racing. It would come from all of the games and the add-ons that they're placing on their website.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that input, Brandon. It's a pity we are battling to get a hold of our guest on that conversation. But nevertheless, we will keep it under the spotlight and under the radar. I think we touched on it a couple of weeks ago. It's certainly worth returning to that conversation a bit later on. I do want to take a quick voice note before we go to Anne.
Thulasizwe, good morning. It's Kusnat here. Look, my brother, I think the country is where it is because of the people, like people of Northwest. So those people are protecting Mkhozi to go and do corruption simply because he feed them, simply because he's nice to them. So Mkhozi must continue to do corruption, and then they are going to protect him and now put the tribalism on this.
Yeah, I saw that video. Let's say some people in the Northwest. But I saw the video you're talking about. It's an intriguing and fascinating phenomenon. The people that were outside that business, those business premises, as police were raiding there and expressing their strong sentiments about the plight of Brown Mkhozi. There was a gentleman that was interviewed whose video has gone quite, not viral, but yeah, it's doing the rounds on social media, and many people having their take on some of the sentiments that he's expressing there. All right, let's go straight to N. Musa, who is on standby with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, Mkunu denies links to Brown Mkhozi and accused number 1 in Mehiwa's murder trial expected back on the stand. Good morning. Police Minister Senzo Mkunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mkhozi at the time of writing a directive to disband the political killings task team. Mkunu was placed on special leave following allegations of political interference in policing, is appearing before Parliament's ad hoc committee. The committee was established to investigate allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Among others, Mkhwanazi alleged that Mkunu had links to Mkhozi, who in turn had access to crime intelligence information. Mkunu says it's concerning as to how Mkhozi obtained the information.
I never, and I want to repeat, I never spoke to Brown Mkhozi in this period, particularly about the disbandment. How he got to know, how he got access to the letter, it is better explained by him.
Meanwhile, the controversial Northwest businessman Brown Mkhozi says he's fearing for his life following a police raid on his business premises yesterday. Mkhozi, who's expected to appear at the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry, has requested more time after getting a notice to appear before the commission. Speaking to SABC News, Mkhozi said police informed him that the operation at his business premises was a search and seizure, but he said he was concerned for his safety.
They took one of the gadgets because I was not there. I want to see if they're going to use what they found in my phone before the commission, because now I'm fearing for my life. I want to see if what they found now, they will use as evidence which they claimed before the 6th of July. I want to see that. You must remember, you go to KZN, all the suspects in KZN, they never go to court. They are killed, permanently removed. Every time you hear they were in shootout with the police and they are killed. It's not that I'm scared to hand over my gadget, but I'm fearing for my life.
Accused number 1 in the Senzo murder trial, Muzi Sibiya, is expected back on the stand this morning at the High Court in Pretoria. Sibiya is being cross-examined after he gave evidence in chief. Sibiya and 4 of his co-accused are on trial for the murder of Mehiwa in Vosloorus east of Johannesburg in 2014. He has refuted claims that he was with the state's key witness, Constable Sizwe Zungu, on the day the footballer was killed. He told the court he only met the police officer in 2017. Responding to questions from the Defence Counsel, Sibiya said he's baffled as to why Zungu would allege that they were all at the hostel the day of Mehiwa's murder.
I want to understand, what is it about your relationship, if you know at all, with Constable Zungu that will make him to come here in court, take an oath, and implicate you in a murder scene?
I don't know as to what is it, and I don't know the reason as to why would he place me on the scene of crime that took place during the year 2014.
The Western Cape Minister of Mobility, Isaac Seleku, has published a notice of intent in the Provincial Gazette to extend taxi route closures between Somerset West, Mfuleni, Khayelitsha and Strand. The routes were shut down for 30 days last month following widespread gun violence in which at least 8 people were killed. Rival taxi associations Kata and Kodeta were given this time period to engage and commit to ending the violence and intimidation. He has given the association a 24-hour notice period to sign a peace agreement before he decides on whether to issue a final notice to extend the route closures for another 30 days.
What we're actually looking for now is for them to say that we intend to work with government in trying to resolve some of the issues, because we are all cognizant of the fact some of these issues that is of contestation are issues that won't be resolved within a space of 2 days or 3 days. So what we are looking for is for their commitment to say we are willing to look at these issues while we are looking for solutions. There won't be killings, there won't be intimidations.
Recapping the top story, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mokhotsi at the time of writing a directive to disband the political killings task team. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
65-year-old Helena doesn't play around when it comes to her budget. That's why she's thrilled to be with Outsurance, paying only 398 Rand a month for her 2025 Hyundai Exter. And 50-year-old Priya knew she couldn't let the deal pass her by, paying just 1,178 a month for her 2024 Haval H6 4x4. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 30754 today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sport headlines, it's cricket. The Proteas women are eyeing a 4th straight win at the World Cup against Sri Lanka today. And Netball South Africa has distanced itself from its suspended president, Cecilia Molokwane's press conference. We'll have the details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Another very heavy run coming up from the southern side of Joburg. The N1 North into Diepkloof interchange for connections down to Uncle Charlie's. I think third consecutive morning where you're stuck in very heavy pressure. If you're coming from Protea, Glen, Lenasia, Grasmere, Eldos, up that N1, it's a queue that starts right back at the N12 Potch Highway. N17, Boksburg through to Brakpan both ways. Under pressure due to roadworks. Roadworks on the N3 running north at Buccleuch, south at London Road. There are queues both sides. Here's the other major delay that we're keeping eyes on this morning. It's the N3 coming through Pietermaritzburg. It looks like just a single lane open, maybe a roadworks overrun down at Market Road. The traffic coming through Pietermaritzburg to Durban is extreme. It's all the way back almost to Chota Motala. If you know what you're doing, come off the N3 before you get caught in that route through Pietermaritzburg. Come back on at Market Road or come back on at Ashburton. Just avoid that N3 south of Pietermaritzburg bypass Durban bound. Really very heavy backlog. Stationary vehicle N2 south at Spaghetti Junction causing delays. And there's a breakdown on the N2 north at Gateway, holding you up if you're en route towards the airport. That's the problem. Lights are out on the Phoenix Highway at Trade Centre, causing some delays. And Cape Town, collision scene R300 north at Van Riebeek, coming up from Delft in towards that crash scene's very heavy. And no lights again this morning. Malabongwe Drive at Potsdam N7 junction at Dunoon. Malabongwe backed into the Rivergate area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Zinzi, the Gen Z. Word on the street is you sold your car.
Yes, and you know I needed a glow up. Hashtag no hustle, no hassle.
So wait. The influencer got influenced by We Buy Cars.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And they came to me. They checked the car, they gave me an offer. Oh, and they paid me immediately. Easier than an Insta Live, without the weird DMs at 2 a.m.
I didn't understand half of the things you just said, but hey, We Buy Cars. Geared for the glow up, geared for you.
Mzansi, Powerball has reached a staggering 150 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Friday. Only 3 times in history has Powerball reached such jaw-breaking levels. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for the guaranteed 150 million rand jackpot today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old but play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Machabeng is building South Africa's next energy-led industrial future. Join us for the Machabeng Investment Summit on the 16th and 17th of October in Velkom, where opportunity meets innovation. From gas and green energy to logistics, agro-processing and advanced manufacturing. Discover how you can invest in a special economic zone backed by major energy projects, solar power and world-class infrastructure. Fast-track your investment, power your growth, be part of the future. Register now at mlmep.machabeng.co.za. Powered by energy, driven by vision.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, let's go to Kenya now, where the nation is mourning the death of Raila Odinga, the veteran opposition leader and towering figure in the nation's democracy, who has died in India at the age of 80. Odinga was in Kochi for medical treatment, reportedly suffered a cardiac arrest during a morning walk. President William Ruto paid tribute to him as a giant of democracy and a unifier who sought peace above power, declaring 7 days of national mourning and a state funeral for the late Odinga. Odinga's political journey spanned more than 4 decades, from being detained for 6 years under Daniel Arap Moi's regime to serving as prime minister in a unity government after Kenya's 2007 post-election crisis. He was widely known to his supporters as Baba. Odinga leaves behind a legacy as one of Africa's most enduring champions of democracy and reform. We are meant to speak to Lamek Ogode, who was advisor of the late former Prime Minister, but just battling a little bit with the lines there. All right, I'm told we do have Lamek on the line. Good morning to you, Lamek, and thank you for your time. And condolences to you and the family and the nation of Kenya. Just your reflections as a family in seeing the scenes that have been playing themselves out on the streets upon the arrival of the mortal remains at Jomo Kenyatta, as well as the sentiments being shared far and wide about the late Raila Odinga.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you once again for standing with us during this difficult time. I think one thing we need to understand about the former prime minister, he was not only a leader, but he was a father to many of us and a father in this nation. And what you saw yesterday was basically the people of Kenya, wanting to be involved and, having that personal touch, especially those who maybe never had a time to, be with him or see him and make sure they have a send-off for him. And with the limited time as well of, having his burial on Sunday, this Sunday, it was expected, but also unexpected because the crowd became quite overwhelming. I mean, we had 2 stadiums filled in remembrance of the late former prime minister.
And it was a long career, wasn't it, in politics, spanning all the way. I can go as far back as, and it possibly goes beyond that, but let's start around the era of Daniel Arap Moi, the detention that happened in 1982, as well as his first election as an MP in 1992, that whole role in moving Kenya away from a one-party system. How do you believe history will remember Raila Odinga?
I think first, you've mentioned being in detention. I mean, being in detention for over 8 years during his time, and during the time of the former president, the late Daniel Arap Moi, really shaped the future of this country, and coming out and still being strong, standing for democracy, standing for multipartyism, making sure that the people of Kenya, he fought for the people of Kenya to be able to choose their leaders impartially. So I think that's how we'll remember him, the person who fought for the legacy of this country. Later on, he then fought for the 2010 Constitution. As we all know, before that, Kenya did not have a strong guiding factor in terms of respecting the Constitution, respecting the Bill of Rights. So we'll definitely remember him. Even as now we are able to speak out on social media, have freedom of speech, because he fought for that Constitution. He fought for that multipartyism, so that people can be able to express their views, express their sentiments without fear of judgment or fear of persecution from leadership.
Just from a personal reflection and also familial recollection, what kind of a person was Raila Odinga away from politics and the limelight of national leadership?
As a country called him, we called him Baba, and those of us who are family and friends, we called him the boss. And I can tell you, it was simply a great man in the simplest form ever. And I'll share just a simple memory with him. I had the opportunity of sharing his birthday this year, January 7th, and we went for lunch. And we had a long conversation, about 2 hours. And in that conversation, we really just shared his time during he spent in Germany as a student. And, he was a man who was able to relate to anybody and everyone at whatever level they found you. Whether he met you in Germany, or he met you in Guinea, or he met you in Senegal, he was able to talk to you and share history, share touch, understand what you feel, understand the perspective of African citizens. As you know, he was a Pan-Africanist. And of course, that was during the time we were also doing the AU campaign, when he was running for the AU chair. So, Baba was just somebody who was a man of the people, not just on TV and not just on social media, but even on a personal level. And I believe, even in South Africa, he had a very close relationship with the President Cyril Ramaphosa, who invited us, to his home in South Africa 2 years ago, and later on again this year we visited the president in Pretoria. And so, like I said, he was just able to interact with anybody and everyone at a really good level and a personal touch, which made him stand out from many, many leaders across the world.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for sharing some of that with us. That's Lamek Ogode, who was advisor to the late former Prime Minister of Kenya on issues of AI as well as tech.
Thulasizwe Simelane. on SAFM.
It was my decision and I own it and stand by it. Minister Senzo Mchunu interrupting his gardening leave to look parliamentarians in the eye and tell them that he stands by his decision to disestablish the political killings task team. And according to him, the reasons had nothing to do with outside interference, let alone the influence of people with links to criminal syndicates. He cites a work study from 2019 that he says had recommended the disestablishment of the task team, a new SAPS organogram, as well as complaints that he says he had received from people within and outside the task team who were alleging questionable human resources practices and even unspecified allegations of defeating the ends of justice. Let's reflect on that testimony with Professor Nimala Devi Gopal, who is an academic leader in the discipline of criminology and forensic studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Prof, good morning and thank you for your time. Senzo Mchunu went into that hearing facing a plethora of questions that had been raised since at least the 6th of July. How do you assess his performance in answering those questions on day one?
Good morning, Thulas. Good morning to your listeners. Yeah, very interesting, I would think. By and large, I think an overall assessment for me in terms of his day one responses has been defensive, I would say, in the first instance. I think a very poor show for a Minister of Police. I would have expected a far more critical understanding and performance in terms of policing as a whole, because I think the fact that he disaggregates the PKTT specifically without showing its relationship to the larger discourse of crime in South Africa was actually a very poor showing for a Minister of Police.
What did you make of so he was laying out his arguments about why the PKTT had to be disestablished. Among some of what he argued was that if you look at the murders and the patterns of where murders occur and motivation and the links to murder, it's not, political killings are not the leading link and cause for murders in this country, but rather there's organized crime, contract killings, taxi violence, and the others. So in essence, he was making the argument that the focus is too narrow on politicians, political leaders, councillors, traditional leaders, and the like, when we could, in taking a different direction and establishing and strengthening established units as opposed to a task team, reinforce the fight against murders broadly, not only in KZN but across the country. What did you make of that argument?
So I think, as far as I'm concerned, my observation to that is that it was very myopic thinking. Because one can certainly, if you're a policy maker, if you're in charge, if you're a strategic leader, you would make the link and the correlation between taxi violence, between murders in general, and link that to organized crime, to drug syndicates, which eventually takes us to the whole discourse around political interference and, murders and killings, etc. So I think the fact that he disaggregates all of these categories is hugely problematic, because the one actually influences the other. And the fact that he can't make those connections is worrying for a Minister of Police.
And lastly, Prof, I don't know, for me, the question remains that he's citing reasons. He's even talking about people that were almost reaching out to him to say something is rotten in the state of the political killings task team, and citing HR practices and even talking about possible practices that had the effect of defeating the ends of justice. So he's got his justifications. But I wonder, how hard will it be for him to explain away the coincidence of that work that he says he was doing objectively, independently, as he saw fit and so appropriate, versus the interests of the characters we've been talking about that he says he had nothing to do with, your Ket Matlalas and the various communications that have been shown. Do you, for instance, look forward to hearing the conversation going towards that as he continues?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, I am looking forward to that conversation, but I think it's almost predictable what his narrative is going to be. And I think it's going to be tone deaf in terms of providing meaningful justifications versus just procedural and administrative conversations around it. So I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to try and wish it away.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. The ad hoc committee, as well as the significant majority of South Africans, are not going to buy that.
All right. I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Nimala Devi Gopal, who is academic leader in the discipline of criminology and forensic studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.
Mzansi, Powerball has reached a staggering 150 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Friday. Only 3 times in history has Powerball reached such jaw-breaking levels. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for the guaranteed 150 million rand jackpot today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old but play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Every big business starts small, but it's the bold ones that keep on growing. Are you bold enough to take the next step? Sanlam Corporate and Santam are calling South Africa's small business champions to the 2025 Sanlam SMME Collective, happening on the 21st of October at the Sandton Convention Center from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's your chance to grow, connect with experts, explore funding and access to markets, and discover how AI and sustainability can help your business thrive. And remember, growing your business isn't just about profit. It's about the people who move your business forward. Explore Sanlam's easy retirement plan to protect what matters most, your people. SMME Collective seats are limited, so request your invite today at sanlamonline.co.za.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take a few of your voice notes now. One or two of you reflecting on Senzo Mchunu, the minister who is on special leave. I've called it gardening leave. I don't know if it fits. I've heard of gardening leave, so it would seem to me it has similar features. Let me take one or two of those voice notes.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to the SAFM listeners. Thulasizwe, I think the Deputy National Commissioner, in his way of answering the questions he was asked in Parliament, I think he was incriminating himself. I know Parliament is not a court of law, but I really think that how he responded to questions, he was incriminating himself. But that's my view. Sekwanele Pretoria.
Thulasizwe, good morning. It's Kusnat here. Look, my brother, I think the country is where it is because of the people, like people of Northwest. So those people are protecting Mkhozi to go and do corruption simply because he feed them, simply because he's nice to them. So Mkhozi must continue to do corruption, and then they are going to protect him and now put the tribalism on this.
Good morning, Thulas and your team. You know, Thulas, the ad hoc committee was sleeping on duty yesterday, as it was not as interrogative as it was when it interrogated General Sibiya and Mkhwanazi. Thank you.
All right. Interesting take. Thank you for that. We'll come back to your voice notes and calls a bit later on.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, Zai, good morning to you. Tell me about the Proteas women and their quest for a 4th straight win at the World Cup.
Exactly, Tulas. After 3 wins on the bounce, this Proteas women's side, they're not just chasing runs, they're chasing history. First ball being bowled at 11:30 today. That's the Proteas women against Sri Lanka in Colombo. Spinner Nonkululeko Mhlaba says the team know their opponents well, having faced them in recent series at home and abroad. But she's warning against complacency as Sri Lanka are still fighting hard for points despite a winless run so far. South Africa are third on the table and are aiming to keep their momentum alive in the stages that come next, which is the knockout stages. More cricket. Captain Elisa Healy struck her second consecutive century as Australia beating Bangladesh by 10 wickets to secure their place in the World Cup semi-finals. Moving to soccer news, Bafana Bafana's qualification to the FIFA 2026 World Cup came as a huge relief to the team's midfield powerhouse, Teboho Mokoena, after what he's gone through in the last few months. Mokoena was at the centre of the 3 points controversy, 3 points that were deducted by FIFA after he was fielded in the 2-0 win over Lesotho earlier this year, despite having been on 2 yellow cards. The sanctions saw Bafana drop down to second in the group with a similar goal difference to Benin before the last 2 matches. Tennis action, the fourth seeds Ekaterina Alexandrova booking her place in the Ningbo Open with a 6-3, 6-3 win over the home hope Yu Yuan yesterday, and the third seed Elena Rybakina booking her place in the quarterfinals of the Ningbo Open with a 6-4, 6-3 win over Diana Yastremska. And golf news, Shane Lowry shot an 8 under par 64 to take a 1-shot lead over Kita Nakajima after the first round of the DP World India Championship at the Delhi Golf Club yesterday. The Irishman Lowry carded 8 birdies, including 5 in a row between the 11th and the 15th. South Africa's Casey Jarvis is in third at 6 under par after a 66. And finally, Netball South Africa has set the record straight following yesterday's press conference by suspended President Cecilia Molekwane. The Federation says the briefing was not sanctioned and that Molekwane remains suspended under directives from World Netball. Acting President Mami Diale insists no communication has been received about her reinstatement. Netball South Africa says it will continue to comply with World Netball regulations to protect players, coaches and officials from possible suspension of the federation. And that's your sport. We'll be back more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mokhotsi at the time of writing a directive to disband the Political Killings Task Team. The board of Johannesburg City Power has cleared its CEO of allegations of nepotism, unqualified appointments and irregular procurement processes. And Madagascar's new military leader is to be sworn in later today. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
This traffic report is brought to you by Auto & General Business Insurance. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, coming into Joburg from the south again. A morning of very heavy backlogs on the N1 from Eldorado's up through Devlin, through Diepkloof down to Uncle Charlie's. Third consecutive morning where you've been really badly inconvenienced by that traffic. You might want to reroute through Soweto or reroute through Kibble Park as your alternative routes. N3, heavy both ways, northbound into Buccleuch, southbound to London. It's about equally heavy both directions. That's how bad it is into the ongoing roadwork. Stationary truck N1 south before Allendale, causing some delays on the run through the Midrand area. Now, if you're coming through Pietermaritzburg, just a reminder, there is an enormous volume of traffic on that route this morning from Chotamotala all the way down to Ashburton. Some earlier overrunning roadworks around Market Road has really backed things up pretty substantially. Crash on Durban's N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. There's a breakdown going north at Gateway, causing delays from Kumashu, and also a collision on the N2 inbound around Prospect. And so coming in from from Ummanzimtoti off the south coast. That's heavy on your way to Durban. Cape Town crash, R300 north at Van Riebeeck. That's heavy from the Delft area. And a crash going out of town on Plattekloof Hill, holding traffic out towards Belleville. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The traffic report was brought to you by Auto and General Business Insurance. Auto and General, never not there. Auto and General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
At Auto & General, we understand your business is built on more than just vehicles. It's your stock, tools and equipment, and the premises where you work. Auto & General Business Insurance is designed for businesses like yours, protecting your assets against fire, theft, storms, and other unexpected events. To protect your livelihood, visit autogen.co.za and get an obligation-free business insurance quote. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. The Business Update on SAFM.
Dowling, good morning to you once again. Let's start with, I don't know whether it's property or it's aviation, but tell me about Growth Point and their investment in the Cape Winelands Airport development.
So Growth Point is extending its footprint beyond traditional real estate, taking an initial stake in the planned Cape Town Winelands Airport, an 8 billion rand project set to become the Western Cape's next logistics and travel hub. Now, partnering with airport operator RSA Aero, the property group will co-develop and manage the commercial, industrial, and hospitality zones of the 450-hectare precinct near Durbanville. Now, construction is expected to start next year, pending environmental approvals, with operations targeted for 2028. The airport aims to ease pressure on Cape Town International and anchor growth along the province's northern corridor, eventually handling over 5 million passengers a year. Now, Growth Point said the precinct will be powered largely by renewables, reflecting its net zero 2050 ambitions. CEO Norbert Sass called the project a long-term platform for investment, innovation, and inclusive growth in the province.
And let's talk motoring and Dowling. A big boost on the verge of happening for the electronic vehicles market in South Africa. Tell me what BYD is doing in that space.
So the company is stepping up its presence here at home with plans to build 300 fast charging stations by next year. And this is part of its effort to secure new footholds as competition in China intensifies. Now, Executive Vice President Stella Lee said the company is expanding its dealer network and mapping key routes for a national charging corridor, describing the investment as a long-term commitment to the South African market. Now, BYD sees SA as a launch pad for its broader African ambitions. The company, which holds about 20% of the global EV market share, is grappling with a slowdown in China after years of dominance and is turning to other emerging markets to sustain growth. Now, while manufacturing in South Africa isn't yet on the table, BYD's local push includes infrastructure partnerships and dealership rollouts aimed at driving early adoption. Its arrival adds to a wave, of course, of Asian automakers deepening their presence in SA alongside the likes of Chery, as the country positions itself as the region's next EV frontier.
All right. How are we looking on the markets at this hour?
So starting in Asia, trade in negative territory this morning, with the Hong Kong Hang Seng taking the biggest hit, down 1.6%. Sentiment is downbeat on renewed tensions between China and the US, and those concerns also filtering through to Wall Street, with futures in the red. Now, as volatility remains, traders are looking for safety, investing in gold, and that pushing the price higher, in turn working out for the JSE. The all share closed 1.2% higher in yesterday's session. Over in currency markets, the rand steady this morning at 17.35 to the greenback. Oil, in the meantime, on the back foot after President Trump confirmed a meeting with Russia's Putin in Hungary. Discussions about ending the war in Ukraine will be in focus, and those geopolitical risks weighing on the oil market. Brent trading just above $60 per barrel this hour.
All right, Dowling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you one more time before the end of the show, just after 8:30, in which update. And Dowling, as always, will give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect on this Friday.
Provincial rivals AmaZulu and Durban City have a massive clash in search of a crucial win. They both believe they belong to the top half.
This is the Betway Premiership. Lisa Gazini, forever.
Catch AmaZulu FC versus Durban City FC this Saturday, 18 October, live on SABC radio stations at 3:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
22 minutes to 8. Let's turn to news out of the courts, but also with links to the banking industry and implications for that sector. The Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that Standard Bank unlawfully bypassed the National Credit Act by using settlement agreements to enforce debts against a family trust, leading to the sale of 14 immovable properties without proper legal procedure. The court found that the bank's actions violated consumer protection laws, rendering the agreements null and void, and overturned several High Court orders that enabled the enforcement. Let's speak to Emerald van Zyl, who is investigative financial consultant. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. It's a bit technical, but I do believe that many people who have an interest in the credit market, who have loans and even mortgage bonds, have an interest in this conversation. So let's start with breaking it down then. What did Standard Bank do wrong in the eyes of the Supreme Court of Appeal?
The Section 129 of the National Credit Act determined that when a client defaults with payments, the bank must inform them and the consumer in writing and propose that the consumer refer the credit agreement to a debt counselor, alternatively dispute resolution agent, or a consumer court of ombud with jurisdiction, with the intent that the parties resolve any dispute under the agreement for development and agreed on a plan to bring the payments under the agreement up to date.
Yeah. So, is that what Standard Bank didn't do in this instance?
Yeah, they tried to get around Section 129 by signing an agreement with the client, and that is not permitted.
But how was it possible, Emerald? I read that these orders of enforcement of that settlement agreement that led to the sale of these properties were endorsed by the High Court. So, what does that tell us about the prevalence of this practice?
You know, I must be really honest, and that is one aspect that came to my mind, is how does a court of law, the Supreme Court, grant an order like this? It's just not acceptable.
But is it widespread? Is it something that happens quite a lot, or are you able to say whether it's widespread or this was one of those rare instances?
Now, you know, I was involved in a court matter as an expert witness in Durban recently, and the judge adjudicating the claim, it was also a trust. He knew nothing about trust. And at one stage, I asked him, why are you adjudicating this case if you know nothing about trusts? And I asked him to recuse himself. And it was not my job to ask him to recuse himself. It was the attorney's job to do that. But that is what's happening.
So, what are the remedies from your observations? How do we guard against this bypassing of the National Credit Act and other prescripts, I suppose, in situations where some of the consumers may not be in a position to challenge it in the manner that the Volmerans Kenners Trust did?
You're absolutely correct. We here with a bank must know the directives of the National Credit Act and the repealed Usury Act. And we got to do here with Standard Bank. Now, I can tell you now that Standard Bank historically was regarded as one of the most reputable banks in South Africa before 2007. After 2009, under the leadership of Chief Executive Officer Mr. Sim Shabalala, the bank's reputation begins to deteriorate. If people look at the block bank gate, they will see how Standard Bank overcharged clients from amounts to 268,000 rand on their mortgage loans. They don't adhere to judgment by the Supreme Court of Appeal, and I've got evidence of this. They don't oblige to the directives of the National Credit Act, and I think that banks must also comply with regulations by various laws.
Yeah. All right. No, I've got to thank you for that. Thank you for your insights there. That's Emerald van Zyl, who is investigative financial consultant.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
All right, let's go now to Wendy Isaac, a senior gender justice and international law fellow at Madre. We're talking about the effort to get a draft treaty working at the international law that will define the crime of apartheid within international law, and there's a meeting of that's happening out in Morocco, I believe, no, in Banjul in Gambia. So let's talk to Wendy Isaac. Wendy, good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. Tell me about the work on this UN draft treaty. When did it start, and what has been the engagement of the South African government in the process?
Thank you, Thulasizwe, for having me on the show. This work on the draft treaty, or the elaboration of this new convention titled "Crimes Against Humanity," started with the work, or by the work of the International Law Commission in 2014-2015. Where the Commission, which is the statutory body of the UN system, started to investigate what a new convention criminalizing certain acts, including the crime of apartheid, would look like, and what state accountability and responsibility in respect of those crimes would look like. Now, specifically in relation to the South African government's engagement, which is the topic of concern here, obviously our government delegation in the UN headquarters in New York has been involved in processes, in in conversations with the International Law Commission through the UN Sixth Committee. Now, the UN Sixth Committee of the UN engages with the Law Commission to ensure that the development of international law is in line with other standards. So there's been several years of engagement since 2014, 2015, and there've been several meetings, and now we're at a point where there are draft articles that set out a series of crimes, including the crime of apartheid, and that's why we are in Banjul.
Is this born out of a sense that sometimes the definition of apartheid is questioned, and you hear debates that question whether or not it is a crime at international law? Is that part of the reasoning behind the work that's being done towards the treaty?
Well, that's one element that is of concern to several actors, including member states and others. But the overall sense is that there are many crimes that are perpetrated across regions and particularly across the African continent that are perpetrated outside of the context of armed conflict. For our purposes, yes, the crime of apartheid that is contained in this draft treaty is rather outdated. It is based on biological and hereditary terms which do not take into account contemporary forms of apartheid that are taking place specifically in occupied Palestine, and apartheid policies and practices that are implemented by the Israeli authorities. So the concern, yes, is the fact that there's a definition included in this draft convention of apartheid which is outdated and will not be responsive and will not deliver justice and reparations for Palestinians, and so international law needs to be up to date. I want to be very clear on this point, that international human rights law is very clear that apartheid policies and practices are taking place in Palestine. International criminal law, and this is what we are concerned with, on the other hand, has an outdated definition. And so all we're saying as civil society is that our government's engagement in this process at the UN level and at country level must be to ensure that the definition contained in international criminal law is up to date and is responsive to apartheid practices and policies in various contexts, including Palestine.
As Africans, what's our stake in this conversation through the various bodies such as the African Court on Human and People's Rights, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights? What's our stake?
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. This is especially why we in Banjul at the 85th ordinary session of the Commission. Now, the Commission, setting aside the court for a second, the Commission is the most vibrant and robust regional human rights mechanism on the continent. What is at stake for us, first of all, at the level of civil society, is that we are gathered here in Banjul for the next 10 to 15 days to engage with each other and with African Union member states to say, amongst other things, and there are various topics on the table, to say, number one, there is this text being negotiated in New York. Our people in respective countries are not even aware that this draft treaty is being negotiated by African governments. So we're bringing this to the table. The second part of it is to say, in addition to the crime of apartheid, there are various other crimes, historical crimes, grave crimes, slavery, colonialism, for which the subject of reparations is an important one. And reparations is the theme for the African Union for 2025. And we are making the connections in Banjul at the African Commission session to say, while the AU has this theme, grand theme of reparations for historical crimes, including the crime of apartheid, we need to be in conversation about how we as Africans can contribute to the development of international law as well.
Lastly, Wendy, how much road does this draft treaty on crimes against humanity that includes apartheid? How much road does it still have to go before we get to a point where it's ratified and it's active, and many countries have signed up to it?
Excellent question again. We have some time. The PrEP committee of the UN system is meeting in January. Member states have until April 2026 to file submissions to the treaty. So there's a chunk of time, 3 to 4 years of negotiations, and this is why we're calling for active civil society engagement in this process. We have time to contribute.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Wendy Isaac, Senior Gender Justice and International Law Fellow at MADRE, talking there about the draft treaty on crimes against humanity, just trying to clarify some aspects and amplify, maybe the word is amplify, some aspects around the crime of apartheid at international criminal law.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still very heavy on the N1 North coming from south of Joburg. So in from Eldos and Grasmere, Protea Glen and Lenasia. It's the third consecutive morning we've sat in very heavy, high volume, slow go traffic up on that N1 through Deepcliff Interchange and down towards Uncle Charlie's. N3 as busy going north as it is south into the roadwork section, north to Buccleuch, southbound to London. Perhaps a touch heavier today, which is surprising for a Friday. Got a broken down vehicle stuck on the busy N1 south before Allendale. That's put paid to an easy run through on Friday morning as well. Traffic coming out of Pretoria back from the old Joburg Road all the way down to Allendale this morning. Power failure Pretoria North as well to watch out for. There are various lights down in the northern parts. Pietermaritzburg to Durban, the big backlogs we had coming down to Market Road and Ashburton all eased up. A lot of crash scenes around Durban. M19 inbound from Reservoir Hills at the N2. That's heavy. Crash going south at Spaghetti Junction, so backlogs from Umgana Road. And a collision at Prospector, and that's why you're stuck in heavy traffic coming from Toti up 20 Hill and into that particular crash scene just before the Prospecton Road. Cape Town, collision R300 north at the Van Riebeeck Road, exit to Cales River and Stickland. Backlogs all the way into Delft area. Crash on the N1 outbound on Plattercliff Hill. That's heavy from Monte Vista as you line up out to Belleville, and a lot of traffic on Marine Drive this morning. Bayside Junction all the way through to Lagoon Beach in Milnerton, and Secondary Road, no traffic lights. Malabongwe Drive out of Potsdam Road, N7 Junction. That's quite heavy from Rivergate. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with a call from Loward in Alberton. Good morning to you, Loward.
Good morning, my brother. I well.
Very well. How are you?
Good, my brother. I was just on our way in on Minister Mtunu's testimony,
Yes.
my brother. But let me base my comment on what Franz Omar Fanon profoundly stated once upon a time in one of his authorships. He has got a couple of books. I'm sure most of us will know about that. I want to be elaborative about this quote for the interest of time.
Sure.
But let me read it. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It will create a feeling that's extremely uncomfortable, called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything does not fit in with the core belief. Close quote.
Yes.
Yes, Thulas. The alteram pattern principle. It allows those who are being alleged to have committed anything wrong to present their side of the story. So this is what is happening. But there is a danger here, Thulas, because most people, whatever that Mr. Mkwanazi has alluded,
yes,
it created a core belief.
Yes.
And then Franz Fanon, he forewarned us about that. That is why most of the people, when they phone in this platform, they are really getting whatever is being said by the other party because the core belief has been created.
Has set in and it's firmly entrenched.
Yes.
Interesting take.
Yes, my brother. No, I appreciate the opportunity that you have given me, my brother.
Thank you for that, Loward. It's an interesting take that you've put on the table. So challenging all of us, Loward, there about whether or not we've formed entrenched views that even when confronted with new evidence, now it's difficult for us to move from those. I wonder what you make of that argument. Itumeleng in Mahikeng, good morning. Talk to me about Brown Mokhotsi.
No, earlier on there was a voice note in your show, and
that's
someone called
Northwest
the voice
people.
note was saying,
Yeah,
he says the Northwest, the country is where it is because of the Northwest people. I think it's a bit unfair.
Yeah.
For that caller to say, because he's generalizing.
Agreed.
And he's painting the people in the Northwest with the same brush that the Northwest is corrupt and the Northwest is this bad place, and it's wrong.
Yeah.
We are not those people. We are not like that. We are not saying there are no elements in the Northwest that might be corrupt or corrupted or, on the wrong side of the law. I think that caller must then say, the people, the countries where it is because of individuals like and pinpoint those people who are involved in all these things that are being displayed in the Madanga Commission and in Parliament. And
I agree. And the existence of those people is not confined to the Northwest when I do Melanie.
To the Northwest only.
You find them all over the country. But I take the point you are making. Thank you for that.
brother.
That's Itumeleng in Mahikeng. Let me play one or two voice notes before I talk to John. In fact, let me talk to John in Soweto. John, you have something completely different on your mind this morning. Good morning. John, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Yes, morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you for taking my call. Thulas, I just want to bring attention to the revelation during the ad hoc committee yesterday, where it was said and agreed that PKTP had actually been running for some time, but ironically at a budget of somewhere around 20 million a year.
Yes.
So I'm not with Mtuno and Tate Mkwanazi, but I got very concerned for the first time and started to think that if I were Mtuno myself, I would stop this, I would disband this PKTP. And if I was on the receiving side of this PKTP, which used to have what is called a slush fund where nobody accounts, I would also fight if someone wants to stop it. So I'm confused now because really I think we need to know what was it doing with this 20 million over a year for some time. Now that all of a sudden when it must be disbanded, you must all jump up and say so and so is busy with criminals. But the real thing I think is this cost of this PKTP and who was benefiting from it and why is everybody up in arms when somebody disbands it. Then we can come to the who's friends with who. Sure.
Thank you, John. Just a slight correction there. The so-called slush fund was with the crime intelligence, not with the PKTT. It's the Secret Service Fund, and the testimony has been that it was abused to the level that people started calling it a slush fund. So you're saying that it's a bit like watching tennis, that when the one player hits, you think, oh, this player is the one, and then the other hits again, and you suddenly think, oh, okay, hang on, this one is on to something. You're completely confused. Yeah.
Thanks, Thulas.
All right, John. Thank you for that. John saying that he's now confused who to believe. He's hearing valid arguments on both sides. So, yeah, that tends to happen, doesn't it? Especially with court cases and processes such as these. When you hear the one testimony, you think, my goodness, is the other side really a bunch of really bad people? And then they come and present their side and you say, hang on. And you end up being completely confused. But I did say that, Mina, personally, I want to hear the minister grapple. I've heard his side and his justifications. A lot of them are not unreasonable. Not unreasonable at all. But I still want to hear, was it sheer coincidence that your reasonable thinking and action at that particular point happens to coincide with the interests of these people that we've been pointed to? If you can square that circle for me, I think perhaps I'd be able to then form a fuller view. But always important, as Lord consistently reminds all of us, to hear both sides of the story. All right, let's go straight to Ann Musa. She's on standby with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, Mkhunu denies links to Brown Mokhotsi and Madagascar's new military leader to be sworn in. Good morning. Police Minister Senzo Mkhunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mokhotsi at the time of writing a directive to disband the political killing STOS team. Mqunu was placed on special leave following allegations of political interference in policing. He's appearing before Parliament's ad hoc committee. The committee was established to investigate allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi in July. Among others, Mkhwanazi alleged that Mqunu had links to Mokhotsi, who in turn had access to crime intelligence information. Mqunu says it's concerning as to how Mokhotsi obtained the information.
I never, and I want to repeat, I never spoke to Brown Mokhotsi in this period, particularly about the disbandment. How he got to know, how he got access to the letter, it is better explained by him.
Meanwhile, Mokhotsi says he's fearing for his life following a police raid on his business premises yesterday. Mokhotsi, who's expected to appear at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, has requested more time after getting a notice to appear before the commission. Speaking to SABC News, Mokhotsi said police informed him the operation at his business premises was a search and seizure, but he said he was concerned for his safety.
They took one of the gadgets because I was not there. I want to see if they're going to use what they found in my phone before the commission, because now I'm fearing for my life. I want to see if what they found now, they will use as evidence which they claimed before the 6th of July. I want to see that. You must remember, you go to KZN, all the suspects in KZN, they never go to court. They are killed, permanently removed, every time. You hear they were in shootout with the police and they're killed. It's not that I'm scared to hand over my gadgets, but I'm fearing for my life.
Former police officer Mandla Buthelezi is expected to appear at the Johannesburg High Court today in connection with the murder of his crime warden girlfriend Chesney Kepler. She was shot dead at a house in Eldorado Park in December last year. Calvin Ludla reports.
In August this year, Buthelezi was granted bail of 20,000 rand by the Protea Magistrate Court in Soweto. However, last month, his bail was revoked and he was rearrested after he was found to be intimidating witnesses. He is expected to appear in the Johannesburg High Court on Friday for a pre-trial conference.
The board of Johannesburg City Power has cleared its CEO, Chifalaro Mushaba, of allegations of nepotism, unqualified appointments and irregular procurement processes. The entity says investigations conducted by an independent law firm found no facts to substantiate the allegations that the CEO inflated payments to contractors. City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena says the probe revealed Mashaba did not influence hiring processes of alleged family members.
After an extensive review of the documentation, interviews with officials, the report found these allegations to be without basis. The investigations confirmed that Ms. Mashaba did not participate in or even influence any recruitment processes involving individuals alleged to be her relatives. It further verified that those individuals met all competency and qualification requirements for their roles and that the CEO recused herself where appropriate. The report concluded that there was no evidence of favoritism or policy breaches in the appointments.
Madagascar's new military leader is to be sworn in later today. Colonel Michael Randrianirina takes over from President Andry Rajoelina, who was ousted and impeached following weeks of deadly protests which prompted military intervention. The BBC's Semi Awami has the details.
Protesters had hoped that President Rajoelina would simply resign and pave the way for a smooth democratic transition. Instead, he clung to power, dissolving his government and holding a series of dialogues with different groups of people, efforts that weren't enough to appease the protesters. Now the country enters a transition period, which is full of political obstacles and legal uncertainty. But the new military leader has pledged to hand over power to a civilian government within 2 years.
Recapping the top story, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says he was not in communication with the controversial businessman Brown Mokhotsi at the time of writing a directive to disband the political Killing Stars team. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. You could spend 10 minutes on social media or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. For his 2024 GWMP series, 54-year-old Amos now pays only 1,004 Rand a month. And for his 2024 Toyota Urban Cruiser, 55-year-old Andre pays just 776 Rand a month. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Cricket action. The Proteas women eye a fourth straight win at the Cricket World Cup. They face Sri Lanka in Colombo today. And Netball South Africa distancing itself from suspended President Cecilia Molokwane's unsanctioned press conference. All the details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A look at the top traffic hotspots around the country. The N1 south through Midrand is heavy. It's a breakdown between New Road and Allendale. Traffic all the way back to Old Joburg Road. N3 heavy both ways today, north to Buccleuch, south to London Road. Equally heavy both directions through the construction. And the N1 north up through Deepcliff down to Uncle Charlie's remains heavy, coming in from Eldorado Park area. Durban crash scenes on the N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. Backlogging traffic coming through from Umgeda Road. Crash on the M19 in from Dunkeld Road. Through Reservoir Hills, very slow. That crash on the M19, Durban bound, just before the N2 highway. And the N2, Amanzam Toti, up and down Tweeny Hill, is busy after an earlier crash. Also on the Mangasuto Highway V section, a vehicle fire burning there, causing some disruption in and out of Umlazi. And Cape Town, a crash on the M1 out of town at Plattekloof Road, causing delays, big delays out to Belleville. A crash on the R300 north at Van Riebeeck Road, still holding things up. And Marine Drive, quite busy this morning, coming from Bayside Mall to Racecourse Road, then Milnerton to Lagoon Beach. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8 on this Friday. It's great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. But as always, we are also live on our digital platforms, safm.co.za, SAFM Radio on YouTube, that's our YouTube channel, as well as on Facebook and the platform formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. Before we get into your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes, I do want to reflect one or two of the messages that have been coming through on 0614 104 107. There's one from Klas Kutsier who says, I don't care what those people are saying in the Northwest. Criminals must be treated as such, period. Police work all over the country as per mandate. Who said they are from KZN? Hashtag corruption must fall, says Klas Kutsier at Harankopane village in Kwakwa, Maluti Apofung. Thank you for that, Klas. Let me go to this one from Makaya, who says, disgusted by Mkunu's lies yesterday, claiming political killings ended before 1994, denying links to Mokhotsi, pretending disbanding the PKTT was just administration, and acting like interfering with 121 dockets was nothing. Shameful, says Makaya Empopomeni. And thank you for that as well, Makaya. Then this person says, Minister Mchunu is lying. How can a minister write a letter and send it to his chief of staff for proofreading? A junior proofreading a letter from his supervisor. And on it goes around this issue. I wanted to reflect on a message. Occasionally I see a message that, I think deserves to be addressed. This person, when I said earlier on that, you hear both sides and you form a fuller view. And I was talking about, for me, the coincidence of interests that I want to have explained. thoroughly for me to form a fuller view. Then this person takes it upon themselves to say, what fuller view? Mokhotsi and Matlala have not been convicted by any court, so how are you going to reach that conclusion? You see, the difference is I'm not a court of law. I can listen to all sides and make up my own mind, and so can you, by the way. So can you. It doesn't mean that I can't be moved by new evidence, the way that Lord was quoting there and giving us that. But I'm allowed to form a view. Who do I believe? Who do I not believe? Right? It's something that we do as individuals. You once you've got a picture of this is the side that's been presented by the accuser, this is the side of the accused, and this is the evidence that both have presented, you can form your own view. Your right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, look for it in the Constitution. It has to do with fair trial right. I'm not a trier of fact or trier of law. I'm someone who's a South African citizen just listening and taking interest in these matters as they are presented. So, absolutely nothing wrong with forming a fuller view and holding that view for yourself until it is challenged and moved by new evidence to the contrary. So take it easy. You can also do exactly the same that I'm doing. Let me read one from Mdu in Table View, who says, with ad hoc committee and Madlanga in consideration, I was wondering under what circumstances would the Reserve Bank seize assets? When do the SIU come in reference to Marcus Jooste estate? So you're raising a completely different matter. That has to do with the SIU follows the civil procedure. That's why they go to the special tribunal, which was set up to fast track their ability to, effect those asset seizures. Because they used to wait along every litigant in the high courts, etc., and it would take long. By the time they get to it, the person has basically dealt with the property and dispensed with it, and there's nothing to gain there. So that's the SIU. Then there's the Assets Forfeiture Unit of the National Prosecuting Authority. It has two paths that it follows in terms of how to seize assets. Sometimes it does it after a conviction, but in other instances, they're able to follow another procedure that allows them. So it's all complicated, and if you want, perhaps in future, we can bring someone to come and unpack who does what seizures under what circumstances. All right, with that said, let's get into it then. The third hour of the morning brief on this Friday. You can call me 086 000 2032 or your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
This October month, SFM shines a light on mental health awareness. This month, we bring you conversations that break the stigma, encourage care, and provide strategies to protect your mental well-being. Because it's okay not to be okay. And together, we can build a healthier tomorrow. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, straight to the calls. Churchill in Mthatha, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, you're quite right. Ours is to analyze the South African, this movie. We are to analyze this movie.
In which we are actors.
Absolutely.
Unwitting actors.
Let me go straight to the minister yesterday. I listened to him. He tried his best, but I could see when he was starting to crash. The minister was at pains to explain as to why there are many other task teams that were actually a liability. But why specifically this one? Two, the minister was at pains to explain the tone of his letter to the commissioner who had gone on leave. The tone to say the political killings task team must be disbanded immediately.
Mm-hmm.
He was at pains to explain that.
Yeah.
He admitted. Now, this is my problem with the minister. And I can't wait for the others to question him.
Yes.
Because they were itching to question him.
Yes.
They were itching. He still has to explain his relationship with Brown Mokhotsi.
Absolutely.
And what I'm saying here is, there's a fight within the ANC because, unfortunately, Minister Mkhunu wants to be the president.
Mm.
And there is a fight within the ANC. He wants to be the president. He wants to. And unfortunately now, they're antagonizing each other.
Yeah.
And when they take these monies they take these monies regardless of whether they don't vet the people that are giving giving them these monies.
All right.
So they've
Churchill.
got to fight amongst themselves.
All right, Churchill, thank you for that. I do need to move on. I do have a lot of people holding. That's Churchill in Mthatha. Straight to Yanga in Vanderbijl Park. Yanga, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Thulasizwe.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yes. No, Thulasizwe, I just want to put a question to your listeners and perhaps maybe you. Will it be morally correct if we were to have a tax team that focus mainly on farm matters, and they have a budget of 900 million rand, to say this budget, we will focus on farm matters. Surely that can be correct.
Yeah.
Now, I'm surprised that South Africans, think that it is correct that the political task team will have that kind of a budget, focusing mainly on political killings and izinduna, honestly. And for me, Thulasizwe, what is happening here is a power struggle within the police.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't get to talk about that. And for me, the camp of General Mkhwanazi has managed to package their story and sell it to the public. And this other now a section of generals, they are at the back foot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a power struggle, and it is unfortunate that these people are supposed to be pulling on the same direction, but they are plotting, each other
thank you,
so
Jan.
unfortunate.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that take. It's interesting. It's different. It talks to grappling with the issue fully and turning the thing over, right? Turning it over and over again and just analyzing it and dissecting it from multiple angles. Dumisani in Port Shepstone, good morning.
Buddy, good morning, Thulasizwe.
Yes.
How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Thulasizwe. I'm Dumisani from the Newtown location. Thulasizwe, it's my first time on the SAS.
Welcome.
I've been trying to save this number.
You are the voice we've been missing.
Thank you for that. Yes, I wanna take on the committee, ad hoc committee. Yesterday, I've seen our suspended minister. I'm saying our because I'm an ANC at Thulasizwe. I won't lie about that. But what the minister was saying yesterday, Thulasizwe, no. It's not make sure, Thulasizwe. You have heard him. How can it be a coincidence on the 31st of December to take such a decision? Thulasizwe, that's one question. Secondly, maybe it's my English. I didn't go to a proper school where I will learn a proper English. Immediately, Thulasizwe, if you are suspended with immediate effect,
Yes.
will you come to work tomorrow? You won't.
But I think General Sbia was telling us immediately doesn't mean right now.
But okay, that's for argument. But immediate, we all know what immediate means. It means it cannot continue right then.
Yeah.
So if you are suspended today, that is why I'm making an example about you, Thulasizwe. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah,
if
no,
you are
not at all.
suspended at your work with immediate effect, you are getting such letter now. You are at work now.
Yeah. There's no transition.
Surely you will work until 9 o'clock today, but you won't be coming to work tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, Dumzani.
Now, he's telling about stopping cars and jumping on the road. No, Minister, it can't be that, man.
Dumzani, thank you for that. That's Dumzani, first time caller out in Port Shepstone. Do call again, Dumzani. Let me go to Putana in Rosebank. Putana, good morning.
Good morning, my brother. You know, I love your work. You are working very hard.
Thank you.
And your professor, I just forget the name. She's spot on. That criminology professor. What?
Yes.
My brother, let me start here. Northwest and Eastern Cape, I just make two examples. Things are not happening there. There's no government there, and they are run by ANC. There's no government there. Let me leave it there. Let me come to the letter of Macingwana, the testimony of the letter is clear, my brother. It's clear. Immediately when Macingwana attached different meanings to clear words, then he reverted back to what they are known for. The letter was viewed and saw by Vusi Pikoli. Vusi Pikoli is a lawyer. The letter was viewed by Chief of Staff. So why attach different meanings? And when you say you do away or you freeze the post of criminal intelligence, you act on behalf of South Africans. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. You're acting on behalf of us.
Well, Putana, he says, if you look at the causes of murder and the linkages of murder, criminal, political killings, the killings of councillors and the likes, this was his reasoning, don't make up the bulk. There's a report that he kept citing, and he says it's factual. He says, factually, the killings are driven more by organized crime. He mentioned taxi violence and the likes. And he said, so you are spending so much, 20 million rand, I think, per year, focusing on political killings when actually your problem is bigger than that. It's across the country and bigger than that. You don't buy that reasoning.
That's an afterthought. He saw that this letter is illegal. He can't instruct the national commissioner like this. He saw it. Now he tried to motivate. And by the way, I don't believe, he's not truthful. He's not honest.
All right.
The comrades, they've never been honest. They've never been truthful.
All right.
Okay, I give it to them. They can believe that they are truthful. I can give it to them that. And remember, let me not take them back to Comrade General Shadrack Sibia. I'm not going to take them back there.
All
Let
right,
them look at Thulasizwe, the Minister of Social Development,
All right.
the Director General now.
Gotta move on, Putana. Thank you for that. That's Putana out in Rosebank. I'll come back to Dumile and Joseph and Vuyiswa in a moment.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 700 gram Spar pre-packed cheese for $99.99 plus 250 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 750ml Sunlight dishwashing liquid refill pack for $24.99 plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Prices valid 8 to 20 October 2025 while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Are you a small business owner? Do you truly believe in your dream, but sometimes feel like the odds are stacked against you? Sanlam Corporate and Santam believe in you and in the power of SMMEs to grow South Africa's future. That's why they're hosting the 2025 Sanlam SMME Collective event on 21 October from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Sandton Convention Center. It's an invite-only event. To request an invite, visit sanlamonline.co.za/campaigns/SMME Collective and stand a chance to join the pitch parade, where entrepreneurs like you can present your pitch in person and get real-time expert feedback. Network, learn and be inspired. From funding and risk to AI and new markets, let's unlock growth and shape your future together. Stay tuned to SAFM for more. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, Dumile in the Eastern Cape, good morning to you. Hold on a second for me, Dumile. Let me try and do something on my side. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Vusipikoli. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, because Vusipikoli is the same guy who let go of those guys who killed Brad Keppel because he was interested in the head of Cheki Silly. So, you know, when you have a special advisor, Mr. Vusipikoli, and then my eyes, like, okay, straight up. That's all I wanted to say. I'm still waiting on how Mr. Nkun is still going to be questioned because I think yesterday he was just defending himself, so he hasn't really put anything on the table. But Mr. Nkwana has put stuff on the table, and he says there's evidence. So defense is something else. People can go to court and they get released while they...
All right, thank you for that. I think we lost Dumile there, but I think he had made the point that he wanted to make. Let me take Joseph very quickly. Good morning to you, Joseph.
Good morning, Putulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, and I'm going to just 40 minutes away from where Dumsan was calling it chef still.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the good show. Thulas, you set the tone for the day. Thulas, I don't know the reporting structure of SAPS, but as you there in the studios of SAFM, you got a manager there, you got an assistant, whatever. But if there's an issue that your manager is maybe not doing the right thing, probably in your studio, in your job description, obviously, he's not gonna email directly to you. There is a reporting structure and everywhere. But I don't understand this one of Umacingwane saying on the 31st, I know commissioner was on leave. Then why did he not wait for him? Secondly, if ever he wrote that letter or email, whom did he escalate it to? That is my first point. Lastly,
yeah.
I don't want to say much about Upigoli. Therefore, Umotengwane is still running that SAPS as a minister, taking over where Magaya left, and he's still carrying on with the rot that he's been left by Ubegi that I'm hearing is refusing to even appear in the ad hoc whatever. Thank you for the good show.
Thank you for that, Joseph. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I could be mistaken, but I think I heard it being said that former Minister Peggy Cele will be among the people that will appear before the ad hoc committee. But you're absolutely right. Lots of expectations, especially at the point at which questions are now being posed. Further questions, more probing questions. Hopefully the MPs really show up in terms of asking pointed questions and confronting some of the issues of coincidence. Those unbelievable coincidences that the criminal suspects want X and it just so happens to coincide with these decisions that I'm taking independently on my own.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you. Let's start with the Proteas women who are back in World Cup action this morning against Sri Lanka and Colombo, with the match starting at 11:30. South Africa sit third on the standings after 3 straight wins, and spinner Nonkululeko Mhlaba says they're well prepared, having faced the Sri Lankans several times in the past 18 months, and insisting the Proteas won't underestimate their opponents, who are still hunting for a first win at the tournament. Now let's go to following Bafana Bafana's points deduction story. Former Yanga and Simba SC CEO Senzo Mbata has urged African federations to improve oversight when appointing key officials. Now FIFA sanctioned SAFA for fielding suspended midfielder Teboho Mokoena in a World Cup qualifier. Mbata expressed concern that key steps are often skipped when hiring individuals entrusted with major admin responsibilities.
At times we used to read the letters from our colleagues, and you go to meetings and you realize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. I think that we as administrators, also even ourselves that are no longer in the mainstream, we also need to contribute somehow in terms of things like workshops, just workshop people what it takes to be administrator for a week. What do you do as administrator for a week before your match on Saturday? What do you go through? I mean, it's always not advisable to go back and say, hey, when we started, we did this, we were once team managers, we were once security guards, we once did team sheets, we did this. It's not always advisable to go back there, but sometimes you realize that it was an important component of being an administrator, to go through all the phases of administration to understand exactly that this is how you run a team, for that matter, let alone a club who's got different divisions. So you're right, Romy. The standard of administration has really gone down, and there's also a lot of I don't know how to put it, but there's a lot of gatekeeping as well. So you end up not attracting the right quality people to come in and be part of the sport.
That's former Yanga and Simba SC CEO Senza Mbata on the morning brief. Let's go to the news of golf. Multiple Sunshine Tour champion Benjamin Fowler-Smith from Zimbabwe and South Africa's Benjamin van Wyk both opened with 65 during the first round of the Fortress Invitational at Glendower Golf Club to share the lead on 7 under par. And finally, Netball South Africa has set the record straight after Cecilia Molokwane held a media briefing yesterday declaring she was back as president. Acting President Mami Diale says the press conference was not sanctioned and that Molokwane remains suspended under World Netball directives. Now, NSA stress it is committed to good governance and compliance to avoid the risk of suspension from the global body. That's your sport on the morning brief. Check out for more around 12:30 with John Hediker. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been on special leave since July, will be back before Parliament's ad hoc committee this morning. The committee was established to investigate allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system. The DA says former Gauteng Health Chief Financial Officer Lerato Madio covered suspicious payments to bogus companies at Tembisa Hospital after murdered whistleblower Babita Dukaran requested a full forensic audit. This came out as the DA opened a criminal case against her at the Johannesburg Central Police Station yesterday. And preparations are being completed for the state funeral of the Kenyan opposition politician Raila Odinga today. The funeral will be held at the National Stadium in Nairobi with tens of thousands of mourners expected. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Big N3 will surprise you how heavy it is for a Friday morning. Most Fridays volumes drop off, but that N3 is pretty extreme in terms of heaviness into the roadworks. N3 north up to Buccleuch from London Road in Alex, southbound from Limbro Park going down into London Road. Southbound is easing, but still pretty heavily back both ways. The N1 north through Dipcliff down to Uncle Charlie's, that remains a problem this morning. And the N1 coming through Midrand, anything but an easy Friday there. It's a broken down truck just before Allendale, traffic all the way back through to Old Johannesburg Road. Durban's had a really busy Friday as well with crash scenes all over the place. We had one earlier this morning on the M19 coming in from Reservoir Hills. That is cleared. The N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. That crash is cleared, but there is a breakdown just past Umgenero causing some problems. And V section Umlazi, a vehicle fire this morning on the Mangasutu Highway, just causing some backlogs as well. Cape Town, a couple of crashes taking forever to clear up. One on the outbound N1 at Plattekloof. That's slow. It's on Plattekloof Hill, slow out to Belleville. And another crash scene on the R300 south at north at Van Riebeeck Road, holding traffic from Stellenbosch Arterial. Spine Road off the N2 into Khayelitsha looking pretty heavy. And don't forget, of course, in Cape Town this Sunday, it's the massive Cape Town Marathon. Closures on Saturday for some minor races, but then on Sunday, extreme closures all of Sunday morning. Last of them lifted around 12 p.m. lunchtime. CapetownMarathon.com for all the road closure information. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you, Dowling, once again. Talk to me about Premier acquiring RFG. What's that deal about?
So the food group Premier is moving to acquire RFG Holdings in a 5.8 billion rand all-share deal. Now, if this deal goes through, it will create South Africa's second biggest food producer after Tiger Brands. Under the agreement, Premier, owner of Blue Ribbon, will issue 37.2 million shares to RFG shareholders, giving them a 22.5% stake in the enlarged group. Now, the transaction, which still needs regulatory approval, will result in RFG's delisting from the JSE. Premier CEO Kobus Gertenbach said the deal would allow the group to compete more effectively with established FMCG players while keeping its balance sheet intact. Analysts said the deal would change the shape of the local food industry by combining two complementary portfolios with minimal overlap. Investors welcomed the bid, sending RFG shares up 24.9% in yesterday's session, signaling confidence that the deal will go through. Shareholders representing nearly 78% of RFG's stock have already pledged support, making approval pretty likely.
And there's been one direction that the price of gold has been headed. It's been up and up, and DRD Gold like it. They like it a lot.
They really do. And so they're channeling the gold price windfall into a new expansion that will turn Johannesburg's mine dumps into its next growth engine. Now, the Tailings Retreatment Group said record gold prices in the September quarter boosted cash flow, allowing it to lift capital spending by 9% to nearly 800 million rands, despite dealing with rising costs. Now, the funds will back a major project to reclaim 3 mine dumps near Nasrec, feeding into its Ergo plant and extending its life beyond 2040. Now, if approved, the Nasrec expansion would be DRD Gold's biggest step in years, extending production, cleaning up the city's historic mining belt, and reinforcing the group's reputation for turning environmental liabilities into somewhat of a profit. Now, the firm noted that higher metal prices and a 2% rise in production helped offset wage and power cost inflation, with adjusted earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization steady at about 1 billion rands in the third quarter. The company's CEO, Neil Pretorius, said the stronger balance sheet gives the group flexibility to fund strategic projects without debt.
All right, lastly, Dowling, round it up nicely for us, all the market activity we've been watching and observing, and what implications they have for the kind of day we can expect today.
Starting off with the JSE, local markets likely to kick the day off mixed, still being powered by resources as the gold price continues to climb. Meanwhile, in currency markets, a softer dollar on big Fed rate cut bets is working out for the rand. It remains steady at 17.34 to the greenback this morning. Over in commodities, oil on the back foot as traders eye geopolitical developments ahead of Presidents Trump and Putin's meeting. Brent down almost 0.5% at $60 per barrel. Back to equities, stateside futures are in the red. This has concerns about the health of regional banks, US-China tensions, and an ongoing government shutdown continue to dampen investor sentiment, and that filtering through to what's playing out in Asia, with markets on track to end the week in negative territory.
Dowling, thank you so much and have a great weekend. That's Dowling Lechela there, keeping you updated on business, economics, and the markets.
The Seagulls are counting on the power of victory to find comfort in the top half.
Reaper across! 2-1 Albion! Unbelievable scenes at Stamford Bridge.
Meanwhile, the Magpies want to start collecting points to level up to a decent position.
Looking for Baltimore! And the big German gets another goal.
This is the Premier League. Experience Brighton and Hove Albion versus Newcastle United on Saturday, 18 October at 3:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay.
They were more than just songs. They were the backdrop to your best days and the ones that change everything. The soundtrack of your life with me, Ernest Pillay, brings you iconic classics and hidden gems that spoke to your heart then and still do now. Whether you're driving, relaxing, or just remembering, let the music take you right back. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. It's about your past, your story, and it's all right here on your favorite station, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m.
This is SAFM. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
20 to 9 on this Friday. Let's round it off with this story coming out of KwaZulu-Natal, where the province's education department has firmly rejected a call by the South African National Association of Special Education, SANASE, to close all special needs schools in the province. SANASE had issued a directive for the indefinite shutdown of special schools, citing severe operational and financial challenges. However, the department maintains that it is the only legally authorized body to initiate school closures and has condemned the move as irregular and unjustified. Let's welcome Dipulelo Tema, who is Secretary General of the South African National Association of Special Education, SANASE. Good morning to you, Dipulelo, and thank you for your time. So, I mean, I heard this being reported earlier on. What is the exact position? Did you give a directive for the closure of special schools, or are you calling for the department to enact that closure? What's the exact position, and who's got the authority to make that call?
Good morning, Thulasizwe and SAFM listeners. Thank you for having us. Yeah, I think I will put it this way. There has been a lot of communication between SANASE KZN and the Department of Education, and the latest of which was a letter written on the 29th of September, alerting the Department of KZN, together with the Office of the Premier, escalated further to the Minister of Education nationally to indicate the difficulties that the schools will face in case this problem is not sorted out. At the end of the letter, the KZN indicates that it will be almost impossible for schools to be able to function in the fourth term.
Yeah.
So basically, there's nobody who closed the schools except the conditions that the schools themselves found themselves under that led to this closure.
Yeah. So just to clarify, there's no call that has been made by SANASE KZN for the closure of special schools, is there?
There's no call that SANASE KZN has done, except that the members of SANASE were advised to say, look, individual schools will look at the conditions under which they find themselves, whether they are able to operate or not. In a case where they find it very difficult to operate, then they will be able to communicate such a position with the line function of the department, that is from the circuit going to the district and so on. But
what has brought us to that point where the schools are needing to make such calls, such difficult calls? Because special schools, already the need is already, I imagine, quite significant for special schools. Why are we even talking about the possibility that some may not be able to continue to operate?
You know, Tulas, a true measure of any society is in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Those are the words of Mahatma Gandhi. You know, I think we don't have compassionate leaders in some of the offices that of responsibility. That's what led to this. I know that this dates back from September 2023, as soon as the 7th administration took over office. There has been an attempt by SANASE KZN to deal with this issue of lack of support staff. You know, there's one school with an attrition of about 24 posts. So these schools across the country mostly are operating with volunteers that are actually compensated by SGBs, who are our members, you know. So I think it's lack of compassion, it's lack of understanding of the needs that these children have. You know, so that's what led to where we are. It's not a lack of knowledge of the needs. It's not lack of conscientization by us as SANASE to the Provincial Education Department of these challenges that are there. I'm sure that the department is very aware. And lastly, I would say it is because of the lack of policy position that define how provinces are supposed to resource and fund the schools. As we speak, we don't have any policy that indicates exactly how special schools are supposed to be funded. We have fought this battle, and what came out of that battle was that there were guidelines that were actually developed by national department, which did not see the daylight.
So lastly, how does all of this manifest on the ground in terms of the lived realities of special schools? We're told KwaZulu-Natal has about 76 across the province. How does it, all of that lack of compassion you're talking about, the lack of policy, clear policy around how to fund special schools, how does it manifest in costs of running these schools, your utilities bills, the transportation, staff shortages and the likes?
deprives children with special needs their right to education as enshrined in Section 29(1). That's what it does. It creates difficulty for school managers and governing bodies to actually cope with these challenges that they are facing. So we work with improvisation at any given point in time in many of these provinces, except a few provinces that are doing their utmost best. I must acknowledge that there are provinces that are doing their best, and I can cite Gauteng, I can cite the Western Cape. I know there is also Limpopo that is also coming in terms of trying to support the schools. But generally, we are in a position where we want the relationship that we have with national government to continue in the best interest of these children.
Is the issue of education of children with special needs one that doesn't enjoy the spotlight and limelight that it should, in the sense that you don't know, you hardly ever pay attention to it until you have a child in your life that needs to have access to a special school and you don't have the resources to go private?
Yeah, that's very true, Thulasizwe. I've cited provinces that are trying to do well. We have learned that if you check a province that is doing well, you are likely to find that one of the person in authority had an experience of a relative or a child who has got disability, and that ignited the passion. But we cannot be running our country in that manner. People have to know that there are this kind of children who need support more than any other child, because already they come from a position of disadvantage. So we really need compassionate leaders who will actually listen. Sanasi, it's an organization that is comprising of parents of these children and the school managers of the schools that accommodate these children. So if you have got people who would understand that those are strategic partners that can actually give you the needs of the children on the ground, and we take it from there, then we will not have problems.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Dipulelo Tema, who is Secretary General of the South African National Association of Special Education.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy on the run through Midrand this morning. You might think, it's Friday, I'll get through okay without too much drama, but not today. There's the breakdown stationary truck, N3 South, N1 South before Allendale. Traffic all the way back through to Samran, and it's particularly heavy. N3 North from Marlborough Drive up into Buccleuch, heavy into the roadworks, and still a bit of a bottleneck on the N1 North coming through Dipcliffe down to Uncle Charlie's. Traffic's been queuing and being asked to queue up on that route all morning this morning so far. Easing up around Pretoria. Looks good if you're around Capital City at this stage. Durban easing as well after a busy morning. Crashes on the N2 South at Spaghetti Junction are clear. The one at 20 Hills cleared. The M19 inbound at Reservoir Hills, that crash has been cleared as well. Still traffic lights out on the Phoenix Highway at Trade Centre, so there is a backlog there. JG Champion out from Palm View towards the R102, just north of Phoenix Highway. That looking quite slow as well. And Cape Town just clearing up last bits of a crash hit on the M1 out of town at Plattercliff Hill, so a little bit of a tap on the brakes to get through there. The N2 inbound has a broken down vehicle at Rapenburg Road, so that keeps traffic under pressure coming in from Langer side. And don't forget, this weekend it's going to be pretty difficult driving conditions around Cape Town. You've got the sort of marathon on the Sunday, but some build-up, lesser sort of distance races taking place on Saturday. So a lot of closures on Saturday, but then on Sunday, the really big closures go in through Sea Point, Greenpoint, the city centre, parts of the elevated freeway, Nelson Mandela Boulevard going out will be closed. Closures through Woodstock, Salt River, Observatory, Claremont, Rondebosch, Newlands. Most of the closures out by 12 lunchtime, so it really is a Sunday morning thing, but it is intense. There'll be closures, traffic restrictions, parking restrictions all across that route. So if you've got something to do in Cape Town on Sunday, rather do it Sunday afternoon. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Morning, Thulas and the team. Good show as always. Thulas, I must confess, I'm one of those who bet online. Thulas, this thing is caused by unemployment and the cost of living. So the thought of winning fast cash is what is driving me. So Thulas, I'm guilty as charged. BK, thank you.
BK, thank you. And thank you for your generosity and graciousness in sharing of your own story and your own experience. And I hope that you have it under control, one, but to the extent that you need help, that you reach out for the help that you need. It is a trend that has been observed by those who are studying this phenomenon of the growth in gambling, especially online gambling in our country, that, we've got to draw the line at some point, the thin line between gambling for fun and enjoyment that is under control versus gambling that then becomes problematic. But thank you. At the very least, I appreciate that you are also honest with yourself. So that already is a good sign.
Yeah, Thulas, in regard to the people of Mafikeng protecting Mogotsi, defending him, it's not uncommon phenomenon. You see, even the ANC members are just like that. They just support their leader, even if their leaders are doing corrupt things. You see, that's what you call blind loyalty. Yeah. Thanks. It's Willie here in Kuma.
Really, thank you for that. We were cautioned earlier on. Not all the people of Mahikeng turned out for that picket outside the business premises of Brown Mogotsi. Always important to not generalize. But I take the point that you are making. Wenzeni u qedela wena.
Good morning, Thulasizwe from Durban. Hey, Thulas, I was listening to the minister yesterday. I wonder why minister and also Shadrack Sibiya, they can't give a straight answer of yes or no, a brief answer, straightforward. They always want to give an essay. It's like they were preaching for the innocent. If you are innocent, just give a straight answer. Yes or no, this and that. Don't give us a whole essay.
But it's hard, Dangit. I need to explain. I want you to understand me correctly. Understand what I'm saying. And then I will differentiate it and say, what I'm saying is. So what I'm not saying is, so that I make absolutely sure there's no confusion. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I get the point that you are making.
Good morning to us and the listeners. Why Mr. Mkunu came in and removed only political killings dockets? As we hear, there was a lot of cases and the commissions was investigating a lot of cases. Why he came and only removed this one of political killings, which is important to us as a nation. In Botaville. Thanks, Thulas.
Moketse, thank you for that. Again, I'll just reiterate what he said without passing judgment on it. In fact, as you're asking why only the political killings task team, I seem to recall that he mentioned, I think he called it the police inspectorate. I think he says the police inspectorate was one of those examples where there was a directive that he gave and it was done away with because of a reading of whether or not it continued to serve a purpose versus the amounts that were being spent on it. So just for the fuller picture that I was taken to task for earlier on. For the fuller picture, there's that consideration. And then just to reiterate what he says basically it was about rationalization. You have murders across the country. He says sometimes he would be losing sleep because of just the amount of murders that are happening across the country. And meanwhile, you've got this resource dedicated to KwaZulu-Natal coming at a cost. And when they redid the organogram, they were going to strengthen various units that were now going to do all this work, murder and robbery included, including political killings. I'm just conveying. Ne? I am just a conveyor at this moment. Ningangfag.
Hey, Thulas. Danny Jordan saying that we've qualified and we've moved on and the matter is closed. I've said on the other show, I now suspect them of match fixing. They tried to fix this so that we don't qualify. Little did they know that we were hungry enough to want to go and those goals were scored. The matter is not closed, Danny Jordan, and I suspect them of match fixing.
Sure.
Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Bongi, thank you. Yeah, that's concerning, hey? Absolutely concerning. The matter can't be closed. Such a blunder at that level of professionalism, there has to be accountability at some point. I agree with you. The matter really can't be closed because who's to say we're not going to encounter a worse blunder when we get to the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Right? So I take the point that you are making about the matter can't be closed. As to allegations and your suspicion of match fixing, that's a scary prospect. Janusz in Cape Town, good morning.
Good morning, my brother from different father. We are all related according to the some.
My brother from another mother, my brother from another father.
That's right. We are all related to Africa, so we are sometimes somehow connected with each other.
Indeed.
But my main point is that there is actually no opposition to the present government. The GNU parties, they are sitting there together in the same pot. They are afraid to raise their points and raise their objection because they are afraid to lose their ministerial position. The workers' unions, they don't do what they're supposed to protect all the people, poor people, all the housing, education also is involved with that. With the unions, but they don't stand up together like in Poland Solidarity did it. The churches know they actually who pay more, which politician pay more, they are going there and they talk nonsense to them. So I don't see any opposition to the present government. And
but hang
I
on,
don't know
Janusz.
how we,
Isn't the MK party opposition, the EFF opposition, your ATMs and the likes? Are they not opposition enough for you? They're outside of the coalition.
Yes, they do, but no, EFF, come on. Malema, he's supposed to be in jail, so what is the opposition leader? And MK related to the Zumas, I don't know, it's a sort of KwaZulu-Natal party but they, of course, they got representation all over.
All right.
So my point, general point, there is nobody actually there to stand up against the corrupted ANC because they are somehow not protecting their own business. Churches, unions, and the political parties.
All right,
what do you think about it?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Janusz. I suppose Janusz there is talking about effectiveness of opposition in various sectors within politics, but even outside civil society and the likes. I think that's the point I take from what Janusz was saying. Tebogo in Qwaqwa, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, how are you? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for chance. Just 3 points that I want to raise. Awareness of ANC. When President Zuma came in, he just a few days in his work, Scorpion was closed. ANC, when Mr. Senzo Mkhunu come in, political killing is closed. I'll pass that one. On the presentation of the minister, he said political killing task team was doing a good job. But in his letter, he said they are no longer needed because the work they are doing is no longer there. So the two contradict each other. The last thing he said, when he was talking about his rights and the rights of the rights of the commissioner,
yes,
he said it's two sides of the coin, meaning no one can work without another. But he insists to say he was right without consulting the commissioner. Mm-hmm. So those are my points.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Tebogo. Straight and to the point there, laying out the points that he has to make about that testimony of Minister Senzo Mkhunu. In fact, let me round it off with a couple of voice notes before we go.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I'm going to be short and straight to the point. People are lying. People are lying in front of us, are lying on TV, are lying on radio, on interviews. If you are going to lie to the public, be good at it. These guys are bad at it. They are bad at defending themselves. It's just a mess. That is just my take on this. I'm Soviet King Lester.
All right. I think that's a good note to leave it. People are lying. If you're going to lie to the public, at least be good at it. You see, that's the point really about taking in as much of the perspectives as possible and then coming to your own conclusion. No one can stop you from coming to the conclusion that says, having heard the conspectus of the evidence from both sides, from all sides, multiple sides, this is my position. I don't believe you. I don't believe you, etc., etc. All right, that will do it for this Friday. Thank you for tuning in and listening, and thank you for your engagement as always. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news with N. Musa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, search underway for a missing aircraft and preparations ahead of Raila Odinga's state funeral service. Good morning. Search and rescue is underway for a missing aircraft in Mpumalanga and in the Kingdom of Eswatini. A Cessna 206 took off yesterday afternoon from King Mswati International Airport in Eswatini and went missing en route to Mpumalanga. The Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Centre is coordinating the search and rescue. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been on special leave since July, will be back before Parliament's ad hoc committee this morning. The committee was established to investigate allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system. The allegations were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Among others, Mkhwanazi alleged that Mchunu facilitated the disbandment of the political killing stars team because he's linked to individuals who are connected to crime syndicates. Yesterday, Mchunu told MPs that he was more than keen to tell his side of the story.
From the 6th of July, I'm wearing General Mkhwana's. From the 6th of July, I'm smelling General Mkhwana's. And this is the first opportunity that I'm getting to explain myself. And I'm going to do justice to that. And I'm pleading with you to give me the opportunity to do that.
The DA says former Gauteng Health Chief Financial Officer Lerato Madio covered suspicious payments to bogus companies at Tembisa Hospital after murdered whistleblower Babita Dukaran requested a full forensic audit. This came out as the DA opened a criminal case against Madio at the Johannesburg Central Police Station yesterday. The party accuses her of failure to institute an investigation into possible looting and corruption at Tembisa Hospital, which the SIU probe found to have amounted to over 2 billion rand. Gauteng DA Health spokesperson Jack Bloom says there will be more charges to follow.
If you are the Chief Financial Officer, it's your duty to stop irregular expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, fruitless expenditure. Here, the Chief Financial Officer was confronted by Babita Dukaran with, hard evidence of fake companies. There were hundreds of these shelf companies, and the payments should have been stopped then and then. And if we just go further, the Chief Financial Officer, Lerato Madio, covered this all up because Babita Dukaran asked for a full forensic audit, which wasn't done.
4 Limpopo police officers and a civilian arrested for an alleged house robbery are expected to apply for bail in the local magistrates' court. The suspects made their first court appearance on Monday. They are facing charges of malicious damage to property for allegedly forcing entry into the complainant's home, as well as robbery with aggravating circumstances. Mutsibi wa Munareng reports.
The officers are stationed at various locations across Limpopo. During the arrest, a police vehicle belonging to the Polokwane Flying Squad and a private vehicle were impounded. Police also allegedly found 13 boxes of illicit cigarettes and 950,000 rand cash in their possession. They allegedly robbed Ethiopian nationals their belongings in Mashishing.
Preparations are being completed for the state funeral service of the Kenyan opposition politician Raila Odinga. The funeral will be held at the National Stadium in Nairobi with tens of thousands of mourners expected. At least 3 people were killed in chaotic scenes yesterday at another stadium where his body was lying in state. The BBC's Anne Soy has the details.
This is where the late Raila Odinga will be accorded a state funeral with full military honours. Many of his supporters are here. It's much more orderly today. The police are screening people as they come in. The government says that quite a number of dignitaries from the region and beyond have confirmed attendance. They will be here to pay their respects to Raila Odinga. Many of the supporters have come with a Kenyan flag and a white handkerchief, and they keep waving them in the air as they sing along some of the songs being played here this morning.
Recapping the top stories, search and rescue is underway for a missing aircraft in Mpumalanga and in the Kingdom of Eswatini. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
This October month, SAFM joins the world in breast cancer awareness. We bring you conversations that highlight the importance of early detection, survivor stories that inspire hope, and expert advice that could save lives. Together, let's spread awareness and support the fight against breast cancer. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
What are some of the more practical steps that maybe employers need to take into consideration when it comes to this conversation around mental health?
The most effective strategies, I think, can be split into structural and cultural elements. So both are actually important. Structurally, companies should start by ensuring that there's accessible mental health support, like counseling, coaching, digital well-being tools, financial well-being support. Prevention is always better than cure. So regular well-being check-ins, they need to be part of the way in which business is done.
Navlika Bratanji, MD of Lira Southern Africa.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
But as long as you commit to taking radical responsibility, you get to show up scared and do it anyway. No longer frozen in fear or worrying about tripping over the red rug in your life. Because if we want real change, we must ask ourselves this. Am I willing to take responsibility for my life? Am I willing to take responsibility for how I'm showing up? And I'll tell you this, it's not can you do it, it's will you. Because when you cross the bridge from self-sabotage to self-belief, radical responsibility allows you to become the hero of your story. No longer the villain or victim of your circumstances. You'll no longer let anyone stop you from being who you came here to be, especially not yourself.
All right, and that is Erica Kramer, aka the Queen of Confidence. She's a coach, a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and a podcast host. It's now after 9 o'clock. A very good morning to you. You're listening to The Talking Point. My name is Kathy Motlatlana. Always a pleasure to be in your company, and I'll be with you until midday as we lead conversations that move us. Yay, it's Friday, and I see everybody today. Okay, not everybody, because I'm not wearing one, but I see many people are proudly wearing their Friday South Africa Forward t-shirts, you know, whether it's the Boca t-shirt, whether it's the Bafana t-shirt. I actually saw quite a number of people in our office building at the SABC. Why? Because you have a whole lot of patriotic people that work in this building. And it's always so good to see South Africans really embracing the flag, right? Embracing being South African. But Bafana has always also given us a reason. Yeah. Today, this week, we're like, we couldn't wait for Friday. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. All right, so today we're wrapping up the week. We will have a chance to do the open line. The Madlanga Commission, of course, is holding its in-camera sessions and not currently open to the public and the media due to the sensitivity of information that is being shared there. So we're expecting it to be reopened again to the public, I think, sometime next week. But at the same time, though, the ad hoc committee in Parliament is continuing with its work. The Minister Senzo Mchunu, the suspended police minister Senzo Mchunu, is giving his evidence day one in the hot seat yesterday for Minister Mchunu. He's going to continue today, but he'll only take questions from MPs from next week. And so, at 10 o'clock, We'll take you live then to Parliament as those proceedings resume. You know, I've had to use an Uber the last couple of days. Can I tell you what every Uber driver wanted to speak about? What is happening at the Madlanka Commission and the ad hoc inquiry. This story has gripped our country at large. It is what people are talking about. If you go into public spaces and you overhear people's conversations, the references that they are making, the jokes that they are making, it all is centered around the crisis. Okay, all might be a bit dramatic, but there is really a lot of discourse in the country around it. And I think it's wonderful to see South Africans be as engaged as they are. The fact that so many people are following these proceedings day to day. When are you working, guys? Are you attending? Are you putting AirPods on during meetings? You just put in your earpod and hide your ear. People think you're listening to the meeting. Meanwhile, your cell phone somewhere is streaming SAFM, because if you're streaming anything else, we're going to have a problem. But you're streaming SAFM, or you're streaming the YouTube channel, the SABC YouTube channel, to watch the proceedings. It is absolutely remarkable. So I think that that's what we need. That's what's going to change this country. That's what's going to turn things around. All of us as South Africans being engaged. And when we talk about people getting angry, getting frustrated, it's frustrated into action, right? Angered into action. What is the action? Well, every individual is going to have to interpret it for themselves. But it's that we have to stand up and say enough and no more. Enough and no more. So I'll take your calls on the open line. This is your national roundtable. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032. That's where I'll take some of your reflections from this week. Of course, you're more than welcome to raise any matter on the national agenda. The WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. And then coming up later on in this hour, we're just going